If you get around the water, they are handy.
In small caves.
I guess we should get started. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. We'll start with the public portion of the meeting. Thank you, Tom. Bruce Horwath.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of two different projects I want to talk to you about. One is the Perlman project at the Creeks. And when I was here, I think it was 3 weeks ago, two issues came up. One had to do with explaining the authorization of Emily Hatch, who had signed paperwork, saying that they were committed to putting in the fuller buffer that had been part of the permit condition for the Phragmites control the prior year. And then the question came up, well, who is she, how is she representing them? So I have paperwork which I've given to the trustees showing her the fact that she's special counsel for the Creeks. The second thing that had come up at that point was the issue of actually seeing more detailed landscaping plan, the type of thing that you would expect for reclamation projects, restoration projects. And I went over to the trustee office, Rick, and I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but I brought over a landscape design plan that was dated, I think it was March, I believe, of 2016, which actually spells out, 6-inch on centers for certain groups of plants, shrubs that were going to be remaining, et cetera. But I found out that there was actually a copy in the files. It was just from an earlier time when there had been some changes taking place in terms of other aspects of it, but not in terms of the landscaping plan. So at this point, I think you have the sort of detailed landscaping plan that you were looking for.
Well, Jim and I did speak about that plan, and I think the consensus was that we did want to see a little more well-evolved plant list associated with the plan. I think there's a non-disturb area that's more grass right now that's filling in nicely, and I think addresses that western side of the peninsula. But to the south, I think we were looking to see, and we had talked about this at previous meetings, the 30-foot buffer being installed along that southern section. As you get closer to the house, it was going to be left as it is right now. And I think Jim and I were both of the opinion we wanted to see a little more detailed plant list of how that was going to fill in.
Let me just make sure, let me bring this on the table, just make sure we're talking about the same thing, because
Sure. I know we had a rather spirited discussion about 30 feet and 50 feet going back to the winter of 2016.
Right.
And before Jim left, he said he actually spoke to you about it and mentioned that he was also looking for a more detailed plant list.
Okay, who was that?
Jim, that you guys did speak about the plan before he departed.
This was the one that separates out by property. Let's see if I can find what I'm looking for.
Got it.
So this is the sort of language that's sort of typical of most landscaping plans, and in other areas it shows on the other plans that this is just going to be allowed to revegetate with what's there by creating a non-disturbance zone.
Mm-hmm.
But in some areas where they're actually voluntarily, meaning it's behind the bulkhead, there's really, for reasons that really had nothing to do with the restoration project initially, they're maintaining the native shrubs in that area. They're adding some additional things like little blue stem, and it talks about the planting density, high bush blueberry, swamp milkweed, northern bayberry. And that goes all the way around for the various properties where they're actually putting the buffer in.
Right. The area that I'm referring to, I think this area, I think is pretty well done. But I think we were speaking more to this frontal area here, where I think there was, an interest in seeing a little more delineation of the plant list.
Well, I think in that area, what they're saying is that, other than where they're showing elsewhere, what they're saying is they're gonna allow natural vegetation, in other words, other than where we were just looking at, they're allowing natural vegetation to come in those areas. It's not a planting list.
Right. Well, that may be where we have the disconnect. And, you know, I think we have a lot of time on this one, because we had said that we were looking to grant a temporary permit
Right.
subject to this plan being fully developed by later in the fall. So I don't think we have to make a decision on the plan being acceptable tonight. And I do think there's an interest in seeing the Phragmites cutting taking place,
Right.
and then working together more to maybe come to a meeting of the minds on the landscape plan between now and the fall. That was
That's what
my
I understand
understanding.
in terms of the conversation, but the
Right.
permit that I'm actually holding says that there are two conditions that need to be satisfied before the planting, before the resumed cutting of the Phragmites can take place.
That's
One of
not
those-
how we left it. Yeah.
That wasn't the way we intended it, but I think the permit actually reads it that way. I mean, maybe we need to just clarify the
Right.
permit that he granted us.
That may be the case, but I think the discussion we had last time was that we wanted to get you guys cutting under a short-term permit through the end of the plant, you know, growing/cutting season, and together work on getting to the plan that we'd like to see to make the project, you know, really in the best interest of the pond. And, you know, like I said, Jim and I had a discussion where we just felt we just needed to see a little more delineation there. I think we're close, but, you know, he left me with some feedback, and I think I shared that same view with him.
Yeah.
I can't speak for him because he's not here.
Right.
But I think if we could, you know, agree to continue work on the plan a little bit and try and get to a place tonight where we can get you back in motion in the project.
That would be fine. That's perfectly acceptable
That's
to
what
us.
I'd like to try and
Right.
do,
Good.
if we can do that.
Okay, yeah, I must have misunderstood the part about the fact that I thought not only that you wanted to see a more detailed plan in November, but that actually a submittal of a plan now was required before the continued cutting of the Phragmites.
That's not my recollection.
Okay, good.
So, you know, Bruce, if you're agreeable to continuing, you know, working to evolve the plan a little bit and getting a little more detailed with the plant list, particularly in that front section, you know, I'd like to try and get a motion on the table tonight to see you resume cutting with a short-term permit through November.
Yeah, we're definitely agreeable to that. That'd be great.
All right, then, you know, I'd like to put a motion
Wait a
out
minute,
to.
I'm a little confused.
Okay.
Didn't you say you already have a permit, but it has
Yeah.
conditions that,
It has the conditions, as I read the conditions, the special conditions there too. One is that you have the paperwork explaining the special counsel status, which I provided to the trustees. The second was that my understanding of what was there was that we had to actually submit a landscape plan at that.
That's not what we,
so my
During
my
the
point
last-
is, if he already has a permit, what are we
It's
voting
expired.
on?
The permit's expired.
what did we
I thought we
do?
had voted to give him the short-term one at the last
Yeah.
meeting.
I wasn't
Yeah.
sure that we had taken that to a vote.
I thought so,
That's what, if he's just cutting it.
right?
Yeah, my recollection is we gave you permission to continue
That's why
cutting.
it wasn't
time.
on the agenda, because
Yeah.
it was approved. That's why I didn't put it back on the agenda.
Okay, we're good.
All right,
Good.
so then we need to craft a permit for you through November.
If I don't already have one, I think I have a permit through November
Yes.
that has two special conditions, but I'll
Right,
I'll
that's
bring
what
it
I
up
thought you were
separately,
saying.
since
Okay,
there's
I'm sorry if
obviously,
there's a misunderstanding.
yeah, since there's obviously
if-
consensus that it should.
If that's a clerical error, does anybody have a problem with it being corrected at the office and
Yeah.
re-signed?
No, we
Okay.
gave you permission to continue cutting
Okay,
Phragmites.
good, thanks. That was my understanding. I just wanted to clarify it. The second thing is just to continue discussion about the proposed excavation of Georgia Cove, the bottleneck in the northeast section. And I did reach out to Solitude Lakes Management and got a little bit more information, which I sent over to the trustee office, having to do with the specs for the harvester, which is the harvester that they're proposing to use is the same one that's currently in, and I don't know about currently in the pond, but the one that's been used over this season in the pond. So it has the specs on the harvester. The other component of what they're talking about doing is this handheld 4-inch hose, hydraulic hose, which they'll use to clear away sediment around the root material.
It's a dredge, hydraulic.
Yeah, it is, and they'll be using the two together. I don't have any additional specs on that. They said they didn't have any. I'm sure they can come up with, they'll reach out and try to come up with more, but basically, at this point,
It's a 4-inch.
I'll try to answer questions, but I have about as much information as they can provide in terms of what they're proposing to do and the equipment that they're proposing to use.
Where are you pumping the,
Spoiled.
It's going to go up to the end of the road, the parking area, and it'll go into the geotubes, or at least eventually we'll get into them. I don't know if it goes directly into them.
At Cove Hollow.
At Cove Hollow, end of Cove Hollow Road.
Like to interfere with
It's a
anything?
hot spot right now.
Well, we're going to have to work out details in terms of, the village, whether or not it's going to work in terms of the timing for them to have that part of the road closed off, but that would be the best place to put the tubes. And the village has been in support of the project, but it's one of these things where you have several moving parts, and until I get confirmation that this is what we're proposing, I'll go back to the village and confirm that the location and the size of it will be acceptable.
Okay.
So what I'm asking for is just support or endorsement that I can go back to DEC, which had asked us for a series of additional revisions, including getting an engineer's report, et cetera. I'd like to go back at this time and put together this package so we can move ahead, and because DEC is only one of a couple hurdles that we need. We need to involve the Army Corps as well.
Now, that cove will handle the draft of that machinery?
You mean in terms of the distance? For a 4-inch hose, yeah, without a booster pump, you mean, probably. Is that what you're saying, or?
No, you talked about the harvester.
Well, the harvester, yes, it's already been in there.
Oh, it has?
It's going to have to
Okay.
be at high level, when the pond
Okay.
level's high.
Mhm. Okay.
What's the purpose of, you're gonna put the material that's cut or dredged into geo?
Not the cut material. The cut
Oh.
materials can be offloaded separately, and the dredge material, the sand sediment material is going to go into the geotubes.
And where are they going from there?
It'll have to probably be brought up island, because it'll probably end up being something that's going to be regulated material, but we don't know. We haven't, we don't know what's in there for sure.
How
But
big
you-
are the geotubes?
Well, they have to accommodate about 300 to 400 cubic yards, and you can set them up to accommodate more, because, it's not one tube, it's a series of them, just depending on how you design it. But in our case, excuse me, I think we estimated around 360 or so cubic yards.
Well, how big
How
is
many
that?
yards?
Oh.
Oh.
Linear footage, I have no idea what. cubic
Well,
yards.
it easily fits within the end of the road,
Well,
in terms of the width too. So I'm not sure, you can, as I said, you can vary the dimensions of how you lay it out, but
How does it get transported out of there?
out of there by truck,
Kind
but to there by the hydraulic dredge.
Kind of truck? Like
A dump truck.
pickup truck, dump truck,
Oh,
flatbed,
big dump truck.
big dump truck, Mack truck?
360 yards, it'd be like 10 big dump trucks, yeah,
36 trucks.
yeah.
If you remember the pile that was there when the dredging was done about 4 years ago, that was 500 cubic yards.
Okay,
This is going to be about 350 or so cubic yards.
okay.
Yeah, I believe, you don't transport the tubes, they cut them open and then load the waste onto the trucks.
Right, that's right.
Yeah,
Well, why don't you just
So-
make a pile out of it?
Just to dewater it, right? You put it in the tubes to dewater it.
right.
Yeah,
So you're just letting it
How much
dewater
does
for a
that
while
cost?
until you can move it.
it contains,
It's-
it contains the
less than the
silt
cost
in
of
this
wet sand.
tube, it dewaters better. If you just pumped it on it's such fine stuff, if you
It'll
just pumped
wash
it on the
back
street,
into
it
the
would just
pond.
run back in the pond.
Yeah, the difference then between this and a regular excavation would be that you're getting much, much more water brought out of the pond in order to get the sand, and so there's a lot of water flowing back into the pond. It's not really a
So
normal.
essentially, it
dewatering.
just filters the water that's going back in.
It filters the
you know,
silt out of
anything
the
that runs
water,
out.
and the water runs back.
Right.
And then once it's dry, it can be picked up and put in the truck. Okay, so what do we need to do now? You want a letter of support for that?
Well, I have I guess I just want to make sure that that letter of support that you provided in the past still applies, that I can go back to DEC and with the proposed excavation. So I'm not really looking for anything specifically, it's
Right.
just that when I brought it up last time, I was asked for more information, and you wanted to have a little bit more discussion about it.
Mhm.
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This is what we're proposing. We don't know what wrinkles DEC will throw back at us in terms of things we need to change, but this is
Right.
what we have at this point.
And this was the methodology they were more comfortable with.
DEC was more comfortable with it, yeah.
It's pretty standard. Does anybody have a problem with
No, I mean,
continuing
the-
to
The
support it?
harvester's been on the pond, hydraulic dredging is a, rather
Yeah, it seems like the right way to
standard
do it.
practice. So I think, I'm okay with it.
Well, I didn't agree to go into the DEC in the first place.
No,
So
no,
I'm
but-
just- But in general, the discussion, I don't have any further questions right now.
Are you comfortable with the method?
The method.
I'm a little nervous about it.
Why?
Because
Well, if you have concerns, express them and maybe they can be answered.
I mean, so it's gonna be watered right back into the pond.
The geotubes are big, black, flat bags.
Yeah, I know what it is.
And they're gonna lay in that parking, where the parking area is on Georgica
Right.
no, not Georgica, Cove Hollow.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So they'll sit in there, which is village property. It's owned by the village of East Hampton Village. Maybe 5 days to a week to dewater?
I guess it's somewhere there, maybe 2
Yeah.
weeks on the outside.
Yeah. And then they get cut open, and they'll probably have a bobcat or something like that, just scrape up the dirt, put it in the dump truck.
But yeah, the water will be,
Where, to the landfill?
Not the
It's
local,
going up, going west.
They have to test it to find out where it's gotta go. But the water that goes back is gonna be the same water that came out of the
Right,
pond.
come out.
And the purpose of putting it in the bag is to filter everything out of the water, so it's cleaner water that may run back into the pond from the site.
Yeah, it's gonna be the same pond water, except it'll
Yeah.
be filtered.
Basic dredging, just
So
putting it
it's
in a
gonna
bag
be
instead of.
Right.
in a
Putting it right in the
stockpile.
truck, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
yeah, I mean, you actually could put it in a truck. If you had access to a truck that could sit there for several weeks with enough holes to let it drain out, you could do it that way.
Right.
The geotubes eliminate, they just make it logistically easier.
Right?
So,
it makes sense to me. I'm okay with it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm good.
No, I'm fine for now.
Yeah. Okay,
Good, thank you.
we're good.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, Sarah Davison, Wainscott Pond.
Sarah Davison, Friends of Georgia Pond Foundation, but tonight I've been asked by Cy Kinsella to read you a very short letter on behalf of Wainscott Pond Project. Dear trustees, please accept my apologies for not being with you tonight. It is fitting that Dr. Gobler is speaking before you tonight, as it was in response to a question I asked him on April 18th, 2016, that prompted me to seek permission from the trustees to include Wainscott Pond in the same type of study as Georgica Pond so that we can establish the extent of any potential water quality issues. The town trustees were very supportive when I first spoke with them on April 24th, 2016, and as they have been ever since. Thank you. As I mentioned at the recent trustees meeting on July 24th, the residents of Wainscott Pond have teamed up with Dr. Christopher Gobler of Stony Brook University to formulate an environmental and human health risk assessment and remediation plan for Wainscott Pond. Dr. Gobler, who is, it goes without saying, far more knowledgeable than I am about matters of science, will present this plan to the trustees this evening. Before Dr. Gobler presents the Wainscott Pond project plan, I would like to also thank the community of Wainscott Pond. They have very generously given their support, both financial and otherwise, to the Wainscott Pond project. There are somewhere between 40 and 50 families living about Wainscott Pond who have all contributed towards an effort to ensure that the continued health of our ecosystem, and together we're happy to raise the necessary funds, $179,000 in total, required for this research project. This is money that the town trustees do not have to spend on research themselves. Finally, I would wish to thank Dr. Gobler for his patience and his commitment to Long Island's water quality, and to say that we are very lucky to have him working with us. Thank you, Cy Kinsella.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Simon. That's Sarah.
Okay, I guess that was a very nice introduction for Dr. Gobler.
So on Simon's recommendation, I have for you just a brief overview of the project,
Thank
which
you.
I'll then present, and I'll try to go through it quickly in the interest of everyone's time, and be happy to slow down as needed if there are questions. Okay. So the project is to get information about Wainscott Pond. As I think some of you know, but just as a reminder, when I started doing my work for the East Hampton Town Trustees in 2013, Wainscott Pond was not part of the water bodies that I was looking at. And it was through the efforts of Simon, and then also in affiliation with Rick, that we integrated Wainscott Pond last year into my assessment. And then with the preliminary information gathered from that, there was the interest in the people living on the pond to get even more information than a basic assessment to ensure water quality, conservation, and even restoration of the water body. So with the bottom line being, we know very little about Wainscott Pond. When it comes to hard data, to my knowledge, the only data collected is what we generated last year. And it's from one site, and it's really only about probably a handful of parameters. So this study is to really come up with a comprehensive assessment about the watershed, the ecosystem, and the flow of water and nutrients in the water body. And then it's with that data, with that information, that a overall plan can be put together. That is to say, I presented this to the citizens there last month, for example, and some of you were there. I know, I know Bill was there. But anyway, with the bottom line being, many people had ideas of how to move forward with what to do about the pond. But the point I tried to make is that until we have some data and some information, what we might do could solve all of the problem or none of the problem, and that we really need more information in order to move forward. And what I'd like to convey to you now is that this is really part of my overarching sampling of town trustee water bodies, and that the information generated from this study will be given to the trustees, will be part of my annual water quality report that you get every year, so will be part of the permanent record that the trustees have. And in the same way that when I started working on Georgia Pond, I only had 1 or 2 sampling sites, a limited amount of information, but then with the support of the Friends of Georgia Pond, it became a larger project, and therefore the part of my annual report on Georgia Pond to the East Hampton Town Trustees each year has become very large, because it's now a large body of work and of data that's now given to you, and I see Wainscott Pond working in the same exact way. And as has been the case for the other water bodies, if more detail of the data is ever needed, that would obviously be fully available to the trustees as well. It's because I see, and I know Simon sees, and the people on the pond see, this as a partnership project with the trustees. So as I'll emphasize now, but I'll just give you the, and as a foreshadowing as I'm going to end here, you know, any sort of plan that would come together obviously would be put together in consultation with the town trustees and any other governing body as needed, no matter what we see. But I can't even begin to say what any sort of plan would look like because we don't have any information. But before we get to the final chapter, I would just, as the preview would say, the final chapter will be a collaborative one that involves the data and the trustees and any other governing body and the citizens there to come together and figure out the best course of action. And of course, the big part of any study is recognizing that it's not just about the pond, it's not just about the homes on the pond, but just like with any water body, it's about the whole watershed. So this is going to be a holistic study that involves what's going on the land and how that affects what's going on within the water body. And so because there's very little known, I have a long list of different things that we don't know about the pond that we really need to get a handle on before we can think about how we might move forward. And so I won't read everything here, but you know, what's in the pond when it comes from everything from the microbes to the larger organisms, and then also details of, you know, one of the things that I'll be doing is figuring out the nitrogen and phosphorus delivery to the pond. As we've seen, that's so important for all these water bodies. And there's all sorts of information we need to collect in order to do that. Now, what I'm going to emphasize now are the things that probably the trustees are most interested in, and that is what will be my physical interaction with the water body, so you're fully aware. So we'll be doing water sampling and sediment sampling. And so just showing you, so firstly, to access the water body will be either shoreline sampling or a non-mechanical vessel. So rowboat, kayak, paddleboard perhaps, but whatever is needed in order to get the samples. We'll be getting water samples. We typically use something called a Van Doren bottle to get bottom and surface samples. This is something called a petite ponar grab, which lets us get sediment samples up to 10 centimeters deep. We'll use individual water quality sondes to make spot measurements of water quality. And then in addition, and so this will be things, those last things, just to go back, will be things that are done as a time series with the actually of the water. The sediment, I would say, is something that's going to be less frequent. So we'll be collecting sediment samples with, again, with the ponar grab. We'd like to put out small traps in order to see what sort of marine life is in there. We'll probably be doing some, like to do at least one seasonal seining in a few different locations to see what the overall aquatic life is there. We use plankton tows to see what kind of larvae and other large plankton are within the water. But this would be very limited sampling done either once a season, I would say once a season at the most. And so you're aware of how we're accessing the pond. We've gotten permission from the residents here to sample this location in the northern extent of Wainscott Pond. And then Mr. Lauder has given us access to this private road to access the south part of the pond. And this is where we've launched small, again, non-mechanized vessels from. So some things we would measure. I'm going to give Georgia Capon as examples, but again, we don't even know the depth of Georgia Capons. We don't know the volume of the water. And there's been stories about, for example, that there were 30 tractor trailers worth of sand put back on the beach following Hurricane Sandy to replace what had been there, which potentially means that there's 30 tractor trailers full of sand that were put into Wainscott Pond. So I don't know what it was like before, but we'll find out what it's like now. This map was made using using GIS and using a device we have that continually can map the depth of the bottom. We'll use that for Wainscott Pond.
So Georgia Pond, really in the southeast quadrant, gets down to 40 feet?
Yes, that's a
That
story.
hole, that big hole is huge.
Yes, there's history to that. I won't get into it now, but I can tell you the history of how that all came about. But on average, it's quite shallow, and I expect that's exactly what we'll find for Wainscott as well. It appears to be 1 to 2 meters, but we'll get all the details. We'll also look at the composition of the sediments, so and this is just a map of the organic matter content. We'll also get a sense of the fine-grained materials, sands versus muds, which has a lot of implications for the movement of water, but also the cycling of nutrients. I'm pleased to say that we've actually already finished one of our main objectives, and that is, Simon had told me there was already approval for this part of the project in the last time, and that is to put a continuous water quality monitoring device in the pond. And I'm actually quite proud of my graduate student. This is done by doctoral student Ryan Wallace. He's getting a PhD in marine science, but I think he should be an engineer, because he's actually figured out, he built this platform himself, the solar panels, hooked everything up, and this isn't just a device that's sitting there, but rather if you go to this website, it's part of this dashboard that he built. And so now it's one of multiple sites that also includes Georgia Pond that has continuous data on things like temperature, depth, pH, nitrate, salinity, chlorophyll, levels of different types of algae, oxygen, etc. So on that site you'll find a map for the different locations that he's built these devices for. If you click on Wainscott Pond, it gives you the actual real-time measurement of any of the sites, but you can find out the data for Wainscott Pond, and then drill down further. I cut off the bottom here accidentally, I apologize, but give you the 1 week assessment of what's been happening over the past week. You can drill down even further and find out the data even further beyond that. So that's already done, and that's a very important resource because we can't be out there all the time, but as we found for Georgia Pond and these other water bodies, things can change quickly. And so this gives us a sense of, and sometimes things happen all of a sudden, and you don't know why. This won't give you all the answers, but in some cases it can be very, very useful. We had a device like this, for example, in a pond at Stony Brook University this summer, and I got an email one morning from the university, all the fish just died in the pond. And they said, what happened? And of course, how would I know that, right? This is main campus, I'm out here on the east end, but we had a device like this in there. And so we were able to go in there and actually figured out that there was a massive algal bloom that occurred, died off, and as it died off, the oxygen levels went to zero and remained there for a long period of time. So it's very easy having something like this to connect the dots. And so this gives us a sense of how things are changing with time, and in some cases to hindcast or look back as to what conditions may be. And if you go to the site, you can see that it has actually the precise, to the very, very fine decimal point, the latitude and longitude. It's about in the middle of the pond, but if you wanted to know it even further, well, I guess you could just drive and see, or you can put in the lat lon into Google Maps and find it yourself. We're going to look a lot into nitrogen and phosphorus. Just a shot of the watershed here shows you that there are many homes, but there's also many farms. And very important to recognize, as I said about that meeting, every watershed is different. And I can tell you now that there are water bodies where the most important source of nitrogen is wastewater, or the atmosphere, or farms, and they're all within 25, 50 miles of here. And so things change depending on what watershed you're in. And so the answer here, you can see many farm fields, it could be very different, or not, because sometimes we've seen water bodies like this, and actually wastewater ends up being important for nitrogen. So we're going to be answering questions of the relative importance of nitrogen and phosphorus for different types of algae, how much nitrogen and phosphorus is going into the pond and where it's coming from. You've seen this before for Georgia Pond and other water bodies I've worked on in East Hampton town, but we'll figure out the travel time of groundwater, which becomes important. And you can see this is already estimated here for some locations of Wainscott Pond. And again, it can sometimes be very rapid, only a couple of years or less. And then you don't need to go far where it may be as much as 25 years or more. We'll figure out the number of homes. We use tools like GIS, county records, state records, town records to get all sorts of information about census records, number of people in the watershed, land use within the watershed. Again, I'm giving Georgia Pond as examples, but we'll follow a similar roadmap for this project. And then design one of our, or multiple nutrient loading models to assess all the potential different sources of nitrogen and phosphorus. Again, as I hadn't said this, so let me say now that as a freshwater body, it may be that phosphorus is more important than nitrogen. I generally find, and I'm a firm believer, that you should never ignore nitrogen even for a freshwater body, but the overall paradigm is that in freshwater, purely freshwater, that phosphorus is the most important nutrient element. So we'll be doing this not just for nitrogen, but also for phosphorus, using a few different approaches. But you can see, a lot of people might say, oh, it's all the runoff, right? And that could be the case, but there's many other things to consider as well, and we'll comprehensively look at that for this study. And again, for this is an example for Georgia Pond, we found that the most important source for nitrogen was different than it was for phosphorus. So it's important to look at both elements and to keep an open mind, because there can always be surprises. And then when it comes to management, as I said from the outset, what the management solutions are, well, who knows, because we don't have the data yet. But once we have that, again, we can get together and think about, what might be some effective ways to move forward with that particular water body. So there's a lot of words here, but essentially that document I gave you has all the information. You'll see I put in there specific activities so you can get a sense of not just what the objective is, but what we'll be doing. And then gathering the information will come to an action plan, and that we'll be working with the trustees on that action plan. So that's all I have. I would like to express gratitude for Simon. He's really been, in my mind, a great leader in the community when it comes to Wainscott Pond, but also other activities. And, were it not for him, I wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't be doing this. And, but then, similarly, the people who are going forward and supporting the project, and of course you all, the trustees, for minding the water bodies and being open for including other water bodies as needed, and forming partnerships, public-private partnerships, which I think have been very effective and I think can be effective going forward. So I'll stop talking, and I'm very happy to take any questions you might have.
One of my thoughts in the beginning was that, if you're doing the sampling of sediments and then the biological samples for macrofauna and also invertebrates, pretty sparingly, that's great to decrease any kind of like disturbance in the pond or interactions. But with the invertebrate stuff, do you plan to do it, a couple times throughout the year and not just once in the year? Because that, that, as that changes throughout the year.
Yes.
Different times, whereas the macrofauna might be more,
Yeah, I
there
think-
all year round.
Yeah, so
Invertebrates
probably
pop up.
something like seasonal for the invertebrates, and maybe a little bit less than seasonal, once or twice for the larger organisms. Again, with the idea of minimizing disturbance, but yet trying to get the best inventory possible, because part of the motivation is what's there, and if there is any remediation, does it change?
Yeah, but my thought there is that dragging the phytoplankton back through the water isn't really that big of a disturbance.
Right.
And doing that a couple times throughout the year would give you, a lot more robust
Yes.
data on what's really in there.
So as far
invertebrate-wise.
as the planktonic sampling, that'll be done probably monthly, in season, so to speak.
Okay.
It's a great look, particularly looking for larvae is a great indication of what's there because you don't need to disturb the bottom, but they're actually up in the water column. Yeah.
Great.
Are there any activities planned for Wainscott Pond that have not yet been undertaken on Georgica Pond?
That's a good question. Probably quite similar. I would say no. I mean, some of the things, for example, I just described are new activities for Georgica Pond. So weren't part of the initial phase. So this is sort of taking the multi-year parts, the best of, greatest hits, if you will, of the Georgica study and applying it in an efficient way to Wainscott.
I'd imagine the salinity difference will, change some of the remediation options.
Absolutely. And so, and again, if it may be the phosphorus is the most important aspect, and then, everything turns around, because then you're focused on that more than the nitrogen. But,
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
How many, is this one, the $179,000 is just the startup for 1 year, or is that multiple
It should be
years?
it's going to be at least one full calendar year, so it's to
Okay.
sort of get a full assessment of how things change over an entire calendar year. There'll probably be, with that, for example, having the buoy, I think that buoy will be able to be reinstalled and be there for multiple years, so that, that aspect will be, and then, ad hoc sampling as is needed. If we find that in the full year data set, there are questions, things aren't complete, it could be expanded beyond.
Okay.
What type of reporting to the trustees do you think might be made available quarterly, semi-annually, annually?
My thought would be to, as a starting point would be to include the findings in my annual report to the trustees, both written and oral. I'm certain that we'll be putting together an oral report, for the people supporting the project, and a written report for that as well, which would be available. And then with regards to any specific data that's of interest, that can also be made available as desired.
As far as the telemetry buoy goes, it looked really, really cool, and it seems like your grad student is definitely a good engineer, and it looked
Yeah.
like a really nice piece of work, but it's definitely obviously different than the one in Georgica Pond.
Correct.
Are there any differences in the kind of data and the kind of parameters they both collect?
Actually, very little. They
Okay.
physically look different, but the interesting thing is that what's actually making the measurements is the same device. So essentially, what he's done is crack the code on what needs to get done. So what we've got for Georgica Pond was an off-the-shelf device by the company YSI. With the final thing that makes the measurements is a device called their EXO device, EXO2, anyway. And so what he's figured out how to do is use that device and then do the telemetry and to power it. So so it's
Okay.
so on the one hand they look different and they're set up different, but they're actually what's actually making the measurements and what's feeding the data is actually similar, if not the same.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
kudos to him and you too.
Yeah. He'll probably leave and start his own company.
And access will be available all the time?
It's already available, so you
No,
can.
I know, but I mean, at any time you can go in?
Yes, that's right, that's right. So long as the device is in, we will be pulling it out in the fall to avoid any problem with ice cover, which we've had problems with in the past. So it's usually deployed through, say, into November, and then we'll put it back out again in the spring when we don't need to worry about ice cover. We've had some issues with devices being moved around and dragged around by ice flows, particularly in a freshwater body. So.
Do you do the same thing in Georgia?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, everything is just installed seasonally, just to...
Would you remove it also if there was a hurricane coming by?
That's a good question. If it looked
Want
like...
that data, but you wouldn't want it to be blown away or
Yeah.
sucked
You
out
know, it's
into
funny,
the
I hadn't
ocean.
thought about that. Let's hope for a mild hurricane season. I'm just thinking now, actually,
Yeah.
we've got 8 devices, and if we only had a week's notice, I'm not sure what would happen, so...
Yeah.
Let's hope for a mild hurricane.
But I think Wayne Scott did breach in Hurricane Sandy.
Yeah, I know that...
Like they had fish up on the main road there.
Okay, yeah.
Washed over for sure.
Right,
Yeah, and like I said, there was the story of the 30 tractor trailers
Yeah.
of sand. So certainly there was a lot of movement
Okay,
of the dunes there. So
okay.
okay, and I'll just end by saying, you know, obviously, if as things move forward, if there's questions about this study, or you know, I'm still monitoring the other dozen sites across East Hampton marine and freshwater bodies. So if questions come up, do let me know. I guess the one thing I'll just say is we are starting to see this organism called rust tide starting to show up in sort of low levels in some places, and this is the season, and so it'll probably, I'm anticipating through the next month in places like 3 Mile Harbor, potentially Accabonac Harbor, for levels to continue to go up. We've had problems with negative impacts on scallop populations. You know, hopefully it'll be mild, but it's there, so you're aware, and so and it may continue to. It probably will get more intense, but hopefully not at a super dangerous level.
I like the idea of bringing science to our knowledge of our water bodies. I mean, I think this is very,
And
very exciting.
and that was the foresight of the trustees. You know, Diane was on the board when that started, and I think it's been valuable. It's the idea, and on multiple fronts, it's what's going on. But I also think having a long-term record. We find that things change year to year.
I mean, if we keep at this for a long time, we will eventually know a lot about our waterways.
Yeah, but already there are trends already with some places seemingly beginning to improve, other places maybe not, and so but you can't assess that without the information. So I think it's been a very useful data set. Of course, I'm generating it. So anyway, well, thank you for your attention. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg.
Okay, is there anybody else who wishes to address the board? No? Okay, then we'll move on to new business.
Francis, I have a question before
Sure.
we get too far along. Do we need to vote on the Wayne Scott Pond project? Do we need to issue a letter of support? Do we want to treat this in a manner like we did Georgia Pond when they first got started prior to the Friends forming? I don't believe there was ever a permit issued for the study, but
Or is it just an extension of what we're doing in the overall program?
yeah, just want to make sure we're clear on all of our positions on this and, you know, embracing the project.
I wouldn't think it couldn't hurt to have, you know, a letter or something between this board and the Wayne Scott folks, CC to Dr. Goldberg. We've heard you know, we know what you're doing, we know what's going on in the pond, and we're supportive of it at this time. And if we have any questions, we'll let you know. Just so it is somewhere written in the files would be, yeah,
I think that would be appropriate.
yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, new business, Accabonac Hog Creek application of US Info Systems?
Yes, that's
Yeah, it's, yeah,
a new.
Diane's aware of this.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was, yep, that was, where'd it go, where'd it go, where'd it go? I had it earlier today, yeah. This is US Info Systems, this is a dock repair in Hog Creek. So I've looked it over, I've looked at the file. Their diagrams, that's all properly submitted. This is all, good. This is all good. It's all non-treated lumber, galvanized fasteners. They have to repair the catwalk and the ramp. The floating dock had been taken out in the winter anyway.
It's all in place and kind and?
Yeah,
okay.
They've got a survey here with the detail of the dock structure.
Yeah. Oh, it looks nice,
So, yeah, overall, I didn't see any problem with allowing this to go forward, but it was new business, so if you want to take an opportunity to look at it before we vote on it, certainly that's acceptable.
Has anyone else looked it over? Did you look it over, Francis?
Just this evening.
Yeah. Well, it couldn't hurt to give it another little time to look it over, right? I think that it sounds all legitimate. With Dan's blessing of it, and it seems like it's all in place and kind, the same exact way it's going to be. It's not like a new dock or any kind of extension of a dock or anything like that, so
Right,
I don't see any problem with it as long as it's all in order.
yeah, but why don't you, it
If
is new
they're
business,
in
so
a huge
take a
rush
look.
to get it started
Huh?
or something,
Is it a current?
It's the survey that was required after their last,
Their last one.
yeah, and it's got a very specific diagram of the dock structure to scale, which is great.
Would they then be
Yeah.
preparing another survey upon completion of the project?
They probably, yeah, that's one of the standard conditions, just so you'd know that nothing changes dimension as it is repaired or replaced.
yeah, they definitely need a new one at some point. It is from
Yeah.
2004, which,
Yeah. Yeah, so they haven't had to do anything out there in a long time.
when are they trying to start this?
As soon as possible. And it would take about 2 weeks.
That's a typo, I guess, because it says approximate start date July 2015.
Yeah. Well, that's when they
Why does it say
submitted
that?
it. They
Okay.
submitted it in the middle of July.
What, 2015?
Oh, 15. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that would be a typo.
What's the address on
Yeah.
that, Tyler?
It says the project will be about $2,000.
No, the address.
The address, I'm sorry, this is the price. 206 Waterhole Road, 206. Can I Google Earth it real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
You're gonna go out there, Tyler, and take a look?
You could do that, it's always good to have a survey and then look at the actual property when
Yeah.
the survey's older,
But this should be good for next meeting, then, we can approve it.
Yeah,
So we'll table it until the next meeting?
that sounds good. Let's check it out. There's a couple like little typos in here that kind of make me want to look more into it now.
Okay.
Mind if I hold on to this for a minute? Want to check it out?
Is that the original?
Yeah.
I'll just come in
take
I'll
this
come in and
one.
copy it.
Take
Do you have a
this one,
copy?
'cause
Okay.
yeah, it's a copy
Okay, I
from
really
my
just need the
file.
survey, most of
Take that one, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
All right, beaches, application of Gancid Dunes Property Owners Association, sand fence installation, 265 and 271 Marine Boulevard. Jim met with the applicants.
Jim did?
Yes.
Okay. I had looked at the application. I think I was looking for something from the association, Gancid Dunes, to show that Mr. Plotkin has the authority to act on behalf of the other, for the associated adjacent homeowners.
Yeah, I think we got that,
Yeah,
I think.
I didn't.
Lori, did we get that?
I haven't really seen a sand fence
Well, I think
application in a while. It's
he
nice.
is, well, he put in the application as the vice president of the association.
Right, but we'd need something from the association showing that he's indeed authorized to do that.
Well, we don't have that.
Right, okay. So that's one thing we should get. What did Jim have to say? I mean, other than that, they did this
Jim's all
fencing.
for the project.
Yeah,
Um,
they did fencing a few years ago. They didn't really follow up on all their conditions, like the as-built survey, or photographs, but, you know, it is a simple fence, it is, you know, it's pretty benign,
It's great to see an
Shoreline
application
fencing.
for a sand fence.
yeah,
I mean, so.
yeah,
Well, they've been
and it's
putting this
one
off.
fence for the whole thing, I believe, from what
Yeah.
I just glanced at there. So it's not like two separate stretches of fence for the two
Right.
separate properties. It's those two properties are adjacent, and there's one fence across the whole.
right. And, I know Mr. Miller, who is there, from the building company, he's very familiar with the requirements for shoreline fencing.
It's gotta be installed.
Yep, yep. So that I don't have a problem with. I just think there should definitely be some pre-installation and post-installation photographs for the file.
Agreed.
And, I mean, I know we asked for it last time around, but an updated survey prior to their next issuance of a permit would be nice. Just to ensure that the beach grass lines and the contour lines and, you know, all those things are, what's happening with them. I mean, it's good to have in the file.
When is the survey from? What do I have now?
This one,
hard to read.
2012,
Okay.
yeah.
It's not-
We're going to try to get away from the requirement
We
Yeah,
were.
I know.
survey for.
That's
We
why I'm
were,
asking, you
yeah.
know, see if it's recent, we don't really
Yeah,
need to worry about it maybe, but,
We can also take some GPS coordinates. We have the.
yeah, I
drawings.
think photos are a good way to deal with the sand fences.
If you
I think
have
that
some-
surveys really make sand fencing onerous to people to have to get surveys and pay that
I
much
mean,
money
the
for
survey
surveys.
for this, the project's $1,500. The survey will cost just as much.
Right, yeah, we don't want people to be in that position.
It's-
Yeah, we beat
I mean,
this to
burden.
death when we were talking
Yeah.
about the,
but the regs haven't been changed yet,
I know,
so,
so,
No, but if we issue our own permit based on our regs,
yeah, I think we should do that. We've
because
been waiting.
we've been waiting a
Been
year
waiting a
now
year,
for the
right?
town, and nothing's,
You're gonna at least get photos, so.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Yeah.
photos are a great way to handle it, yeah, so
Yeah.
we don't need to do the survey.
The other
We want
property
something, sure.
survey is from 1991.
Okay,
It's pretty old.
yeah.
The
there's-
GPS devices actually take photos and then mark the
Right.
GPS coordinates.
But a
Using it this morning.
GPS, and that is great, except you don't have anyone who's licensed and is willing to stand behind that data.
No, it's not,
No, it's
but
not
it's a
pers-
fluid
no.
line. It's a fluid line. So that's why the survey is really not very useful at all.
No, it is, to document where that beach grass line or those dunes might be moving, and especially if this fencing now is technically
But it could
going
be here today.
seaward. It could be here today and gone tomorrow.
Correct.
I recognize
So-
that,
so-
yeah.
The survey
Yep.
is,
Could have changed a million times since 91 and then be
Well-
back right where it was at 91 right
It
now,
could,
just by
it
chance.
could.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jim
yeah,
has the
yeah.
most up-to-date
Right.
information on this. Why don't we wait till he comes
Okay.
back?
Yeah, because we
for
need
next
the
meeting?
letter of
Right.
authorization anyway.
That's
Right.
fine. It seems like they're doing this pretty preemptively
Okay.
too, this early in the, you're getting this all
I
straightened
think
out.
they've
so
been
it's
putting this
Yeah, it's
off for a
great.
not really
year,
a big rush. Oh, they have?
waiting for the
Oh, okay, well,
Mhm.
the rules to change.
either way, you don't need the fencing right now in this part of the year, so.
All right, let's try and get it together for the next meeting.
Yes. Sure.
Come on up.
You have to come up.
My name is Michael Matus, and I live within the Gancid Dunes Association community. I'm the vice president of our association, and I didn't hear you mention at all that this is a repair job. We came before the board, before your body, 3 to 4 years ago to put a full range of all of the properties that are adjacent to the waterfront that are in our association. And we filled out the application. Just as an aside, there wasn't a survey required. But we did take photos and went through procedurally everything that you laid out for us. And now, this early spring, it's one property and a half, actually, that was pulled out. So what we want to do is just continue the fencing as if it hadn't been washed out. So it's not an additional fence. It will be connected to the original fencing from 4 years ago. I don't recall 4 years ago having to write a letter of authorization. It's not Mr. Plotkin that's asking for this. It's the association trying to replace what we put in before, which has done a fabulous job of holding the sand. So
It's
when
great,
you,
it's
when
great
you,
to see you guys doing that.
when you see the photos, I'll tell you, last year was probably the best it's looked since I moved in 1995. And it was all due to that fencing.
And- and
So
then
we're proponents, and we'd like to move forward.
Use metal stakes or wooden stakes?
Oh, no, no,
It's
no.
all wooden,
wooden
yeah,
stakes.
it's all,
No.
it's in the permit,
We
it's all
followed
being
all
done
of the
right. Yeah.
procedures to the
So
letter.
I do see that the application that was received in 2012
That's it.
was, for the Gancid Dunes, was submitted and signed by you,
Yes,
as, you know, for them. And the permit was one line of shoreline fencing through the 6, you know, properties.
Yes.
I do see an as-built survey was not requested. Photographs was, as was submission of written documentation granting Mr. Mattis the authority to act on behalf of the association.
Sorry,
So
I'm
that.
sorry, I don't
yeah.
recall that.
So there
What did we
wasn't-
do? Have the
yeah.
president of the association write a letter? Is that sufficient for you
Generally,
folks?
it's either like a copy of the,
Bylaws?
like you have, yeah, annual meetings, blah, 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 or if you have an attorney for the association, their word to say so-and-so has been elected or nominated or put in the position of president, you know, is sufficient. So,
I'm sorry, can I ask again? Would a letter from
Letter
the
from-
president on our stationery
not
be
unless,
sufficient?
not unless there's something that shows the president has been authorized to sign on behalf of the association, which would be bylaws, minutes, something from your attorney.
Do you have,
Rick,
what do
can
we
you
sub-
explain?
do you have bylaws?
Well, let me just say, there's two levels here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were getting an easement or an instrument that you have to be certain is recordable and is enforceable, you got to jump through all the hoops. You have to make sure the authorized person is legally authorized. I mean, for the purpose of an application in front of a piece of property, you know, usually, I think if you get, you know, if someone submits an application on the association letterhead, signed by the president with the name, you know, it says, "I'm the president," purporting to be the president, I think you normally take that at face value.
We might, except we're authorizing someone to install something on someone else's property. We don't have anything in here that says, you know, any one of the 6 individual
Is
property
it going on
owners
reserve
who could've
area, or is it going
changed.
within, is it going in front
No.
of the individual lots? Is it going on the individual lots? Where's the sand fencing going?
The fencing is all along the shoreline of the lots, the 6 adjacent properties.
I mean, is it on trustee land? Is it on the association reserved area? Is it on the individual
I don't
lots?
think there's any reserved area. Well, there's a conservation easement
There's an
in
easement.
front of one lot.
Well, there's an easement in front of every lot so
I
they can
mean,
get from
like
their
in-
house to the water.
In the 2012 survey, it's definitely landward of the beach grass line at that time.
Yes, that's why we put it
You
there.
know, in 1991,
I mean, I'd have to see
You
a
know.
survey or map, see where they're,
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, they're not putting it on our
yeah,
land.
you
I'm not
see,
even
and
sure
we
they're
don't
gonna
have
have
a
our
recent,
land.
we don't have a recent survey or map. We can look at that to show us exactly what's happened to that shoreline over the years.
So right now,
Could have brought
But
a,
signed
basically-
for by one member
Of the association, right. Now, let's say it's, you know, I live on a roadway, and somebody goes to get a permit to put up a fence, and in the course of installing that fence, somebody gets hurt. You know, it's metal stakes, or it's wood, whatever. I'm the property owner, something's occurring on my property I was not aware of, or I could have just said yes, but who's got the documentation to show that? So who's gonna take responsibility for that action on my property? That's
Are you
why
worried
I
that we would
want-
be responsible?
Huh?
Are you worried that we would be responsible, the trustees?
I don't think we would, but I
Well,
don't
then-
want-
then it's
I
not
don't-
really our
I don't-
concern.
But no, I don't want to be in the position of giving somebody a permit on a parcel of land that the homeowner has
If
not
we
said,
give a permit to
"I want
install
that."
something, but then they put it on someone's property that they don't have permission for, and someone gets hurt, we're not responsible for them putting it where they didn't have authorization
Right, but I
to
don't
do
want
it.
to do that as an elected body, give a permit out for a piece of property that the homeowner is not aware of.
The homeowner, in this case, Mr. Plotkin,
Is aware of it, I know, right?
well, no, he's on the board with me,
On the- Okay.
so we're
I
not
mean,
getting
yeah,
too
it's-
far away. There are
I'd
only
have to- I'd
31
have to
homes
see where,
there.
you know, where it's
Yeah.
going. If it's going on individual lots, which is kind of what it looked like, I mean, we could ask for something from the individual lot owners. I think that would be, you
I
know,
think the first time whatever it was, 3 years ago, because we were doing it for the very first time, I believe we did have a letter from each of these
yeah,
6
that's
lots,
probably,
and we're just following through. This is a repair
Yeah.
job.
in other words,
No, I don't
let me
see that
understand
in
it.
here.
You're doing it kind of as a community,
Yes,
but the fencing is going on some of the individual people's lots.
6 out of the 31 homes
Right,
around the
you know,
water.
the ones on the ocean.
Isn't this similar to what's going on down in?
So,
Lazy
I
Point?
mean, you know, we could get
Yes.
letters, I suppose,
what do we
or
require
some
from them?
indicia from the individual owners. But let me ask you a question. If it's on their property.
The
what
other
are we-
individual owners are not having any
We don't
repair on
know
their
if it's on
property.
their property or not.
Only 2 pieces
The
of property.
survey
are-
showing
Surveys
these
are
being
too
installed
old.
north of the beachgrass line, so
Right, but they're from 1991 and 2012.
you mean
So
where the,
where's the beach grass now? Where's that beach grass line?
I
We
think
don't
it's
know.
appropriate to have a
We'll give you a
plan in
picture.
place for these activities, and I think we don't want to make it too onerous on the applicant. So, you know, I mean, I would be in favor of getting a letter from the president of the association stating that he has garnered homeowner permission to undertake this project, and get one letter of communication that clearly articulates the position of your board to this board.
Right.
And then I would, personally, I would be comfortable with a well-written letter stating that permission has been obtained. Does anyone have
keep
a
it
thought on that?
I think that's pretty, it can be simple, I think, really, you know, just something written that says, hey, this is our association, we all agree that
These are
we
the
want
properties.
this to be permitted, and we're gonna put it here, and everyone
I'm
is
sure we
okay with
have
it.
minutes from several meetings that this was discussed. We're
Yeah,
not
so I
doing
think
this
that would be
at
great.
midnight.
If your president could just articulate a
Sneaking
nice,
up to repair
clear
our own
letter.
fences.
yeah, clear letter stating that these are the properties, I have permission to act on their behalf, and boom.
Absolutely, you'll have it in a couple of days.
Perfect,
fair?
yeah, I think since it's repair, it's already been there, it's, you know, I'm not worried about anything personally, really, with.
To our clerk, you know, via
Any-
Lori at the office.
Yeah. Just one aside, not an aside, but to include, make it part of the documentation here. Mr. Plotkin and I met with Jim Grimes at the location and made sure we were all on the same wavelength, because we don't want to put something in and rip it out. That's a waste of money.
Yeah.
So we appreciate your time and consideration, and we'll take care of it.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Notice from the Village ZBA, hearing Williams, 200 Lily Pond Lane. Let's see. Application of Edward W. Williams and Lisa B. Williams for wetlands permit from Chapter 163, freshwater wetlands and area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to make alterations and construct additions to an existing single-family residence, install drainage control structures, install a new sanitary system, and plant vegetation. Variances of 62.1 feet and 43 feet are required from Section 278.3.A8 to make alterations to the existing residence, construct 949 square foot additions, and construct a porch onto the existing residence. The residence sits 71.5 feet from wetlands. The additions are proposed for 87.9 feet of wetlands and porch, from wetlands, and a porch is proposed 107 feet from wetlands, where a 150-foot setback is required. 65.4-foot variance is required to install a new sanitary system with nearest point of system at 134.6 feet from wetlands, and the leaching chambers located 160.7 feet from the wetlands, where a 200-foot setback is required. A 56.7-foot variance is required to install a series of 5 stormwater dry wells, the nearest of which is located 93.3 feet from wetlands, where a 150-foot setback is required. Project includes planting vegetation 20 feet in width adjacent to the wetlands to act as the native plant buffer. The subject property is 106,626 square feet in area, located at 200 Lily Pond Lane. It's located in a FEMA flood zones AE elevation 10, and the project is classified a type 2 action in accordance to SECR.
It's a lot of variances near the
Yeah.
wetlands, and
Yeah.
Sounds like
we're
it's
here
like you're
discussing.
right in the middle of wetlands.
Yeah, we're here discussing how to help the health of all of our water bodies, and an application comes before us for multiple variances with septic systems and dry wells, and it's in a flood zone. It just seems like we're just putting septic systems right into our water
Right
bodies.
back in it.
Right
Sounds
back
like,
in it.
sounds like they know they're in a tricky area and they're trying to mitigate it.
That's what I was gonna,
With
it kind of
the-
feels like one of those things where it's like,
Yeah.
we wanna make this addition to our house, but
Yeah.
if we upgrade the septic and put some
Yeah,
plants in,
Maybe they'll
can we
go
get away with
for
it?
it, yeah.
I don't think a
Um,
20-foot buffer is really gonna.
But I don't know, I
Yeah.
don't know the people, I don't know the situation,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is this a hearing on the 25th?
I think these are same people that came to us about the subdivision on Lily Pond.
Right.
So this is that was,
That's the one main residence on the road.
Right.
To the
right?
south of the pond.
I just don't understand if they're upgrading their septic system and keeping it in the same place, or what. But you write what's there, and I know that's all you really know about it, so we don't know the answer to that question.
I mean, it exists. It sounds like they want to improve it.
Right.
Improve it or enlarge it?
Probably a
Yeah,
combination.
Little both, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have a
wondering if-
lot of width to
Yeah.
the property. The road borders them to the south, the pond is to the north.
Yeah, I wonder what the addition
Yeah.
is, if it's another bedroom, if there's another bathroom as part of the addition or not.
I don't
you
know if
what
they've
mean?
explored other
Yeah,
options.
porch is one thing, that's.
Yeah,
not-
porch is not
Right.
too big of a deal, but a
But
whole
that's not
900 square feet of addition or something, there's
Yeah.
gotta be a bedroom and a bathroom
Yeah.
involved in that somewhere,
Yeah,
which
which
would
would
entail
prompt-
upgrading the septic, or
Right.
enlarging the septic.
right. And there's new regs out there for septic, which I don't know when they're gonna kick in,
Well, this is the village.
the village. Oh, so maybe they don't, yeah, I don't know, yeah. When is
Still
the
there-
hearing, Francis? Is that the 25th?
25th,
25th,
11 o'clock.
They're in the Georgia watershed too, of course, then, so they're,
Yeah.
um,
yep.
I mean, they probably would get, rebates, potential rebates once that kicks in, if they waited to do it till
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Would you like to just comment that it does sound like a lot of variances for a very environmentally sensitive area adjacent to a potentially
A sensitive water body.
water body, yeah. So we
That-
would like to see
It's an ownership,
additional,
yeah.
That remediation work is currently
Remediation, yeah.
undergoing. So here we
Yeah.
just, I believe, discussed a project for Phragmites removal and improvement to the pond, and now we're looking for variances to
Right,
yeah,
potentially allow something that's not in the best interest of the pond.
yeah.
yeah, from our end, we'd,
That's very well
be
put.
best
Can I make a general
Hold off
comment
on
on
it.
this?
yeah.
I don't know what the application is exactly, other than what you've said. You are often dealing with applications on waterways adjacent to trustee waterways, and so this is one of them. Most of the time, all you've got is the hearing notice and maybe a little of additional information. So you don't really, usually as evidenced by the discussion here, you don't know the details of the application and you won't be at the public hearing. I think what you might want to consider appropriate in cases like this is to say, we're the trustees, we own Lily Pond. Preservation of the water quality of that water body is very important to us. We ask the Village Zoning Board of Appeals to take this into account, be aware of our concerns, et cetera, et cetera. So, you don't take a position on the application per se, because, you don't know all the facts and circumstances.
Right.
But you let the village, or if it's the town know, we're not telling you what you should do. We want you to know that this is what you should be concerned about and take that into account. I think that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Because, you're not at the hearing, you don't
have all the
you often
plans
don't know a lot about the application. Just let the reviewing agency know, these are our concerns, please take them into account. That's how I would, recommend maybe in these cases you address them.
I like that.
So who would put that into writing? Our
Village
clerk
zoning-
Or you?
I mean, and let Lori whoever wants to take a crack at it, I'm happy to review it.
Okay.
Okay, we'll do that.
That's a good idea.
motion or a letter, it could be something that we could use, you know,
Yeah.
basic
Pretty
template
standard,
of.
yeah.
Yeah, you say things like, any variance is granted should be the minimum variance necessary, there's, I can help with some language, but.
Yeah, you put them on notice for everything near the waterways.
Okay, proposed amendment to the village code, chapter 77 of beaches. This is from Rebecca Molinari Hanson. Please find and close the proposed amendment to the village, East Hampton Village Code, chapter 77, which will require written permission from your board prior to adoption. The underlined portion of the proposed change relating to beach fires and hours of operation. Your expeditious review would be greatly appreciated. What they want to do is add, no fire shall be set, started, kindled, or maintained prior to 6 p.m. and must be fully extinguished prior to 12 midnight. They just want to add that to their existing code.
Would that be,
Start 'em?
Till 6.
Did you say?
yeah,
Cannot start, kindle, or maintain a fire on the beach prior to 6 p.m.
No, prior, no.
would that include someone who has like an actual barbecue in the back of their pickup, or just those that are buried and need
These
to
are
be in the
beach
meadow?
fires, beach fires is the heading.
I wish we knew
Because I
why
always
they were.
thought that, yeah, that was just for like the ones you need the metal containers for.
Well, they just.
Hard to say that
Yeah,
if you have a barbecue grill in the back of your pickup truck that you're kindling a fire.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's considered a beach fire. There
like
might be a
that.
definition
They'd
for
have a heck
beach
of a time
fires in
trying
the
to
code
enforce that.
somewhere.
What does the
Right.
current code
Yeah.
state regarding beach fires? Is there a schedule or?
There's 10 points.
Yeah, the town has a
Just
time
pertaining
frame.
to fires.
Towns,
This
I
is
think
it.
it just
This
has
is
to be
fires.
extinguished by 11:59. I don't think they have a start time on it, but it has to be extinguished by a certain time. So this is
So
kind
that's
of
uniform.
following suit, yeah. In general, I didn't see a problem with it, but, I mean, now that it is made public, we could just wait and see if anyone
Yeah,
who
let's get
listens
some
comes
feedback.
forward with
This is-
questions or concerns.
This is consistent with their other rules as far as driving on the beach, hours, dogs on the beach, those hours. It's putting it all at that same 6 o'clock point.
Well, consistency is good.
And
And just sometimes in
Have
the-
they
in the
had-
fall,
They were
historical earlier.
they were asking us for written permission to proceed with this.
Yeah, they have
But-
to. It's in
Right,
their
but,
code.
I mean, but we're gonna sit here and wait for how long?
Public
For
comment.
somebody, for how long?
2 weeks. I mean, till our next meeting. It's new business, till the next meeting. They would probably have to put a notice in their paper as well of a change to their code. So they'll have a hearing on it. They're probably looking for our okay before they schedule that. So 2 weeks. And then they would schedule it and public would still have even more time
Okay, so
comment.
what are we waiting for?
to see if anybody
the
came
public,
to
I like the
us to
idea.
say,
No, but what will
know.
happen is, we'll say whether or not we disagree with what they want to do, but they're holding the hearing, we're not.
Right, so the public can.
So they're just
Right,
looking
but
for
they're-
our
they're
permission to
not,
move
they
ahead.
can't schedule the hearing until they've got our permission.
Exactly.
Right.
So why,
Yeah.
what are we waiting for to give them permission to schedule their hearing?
Just to see if anybody came to us before we just say, sure, fine, sounds good.
Are we gonna put a notice, put out notice that the village is considering changing their code?
No, it's up to them to do that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
so
I know what you're-
again,
I
so
see
what are
you're
we
saying.
waiting
Yeah, I know
for?
what you're saying.
Just because we've mentioned it, just for public, just to have,
I
Oh, and
disagree.
we have a couple other members who aren't here this evening who might have a question or a
quorum.
concern.
We have a
a
quorum.
quorum, right? But Jim is Beaches Committee, he's not here,
I
I
know
just think it's, just can't hurt.
in the winter, you might want to
Yeah.
go to the
I
beach
don't- I
when
don't
the
s-
sun sets at 4 o'clock and start a fire at 5, and you can't.
Going
I
around,
don't know.
Checking the time on this, when they start them.
They're beach
Use the chalk, use the
Probably their
chalkboard.
ordinance people.
yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Was there another change that's been
That's it.
proposed?
No, that's
There
all,
was
that's
one
all they're
change.
asking for.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like a
if
big
you're-
deal, honestly, but
If you're
it's-
consistent with town code, it's the end date that would, town has an end time, but not a
Oh,
start
you
time.
said 11:59.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm just, still, I don't understand what we're gonna wait for. Why are we hesitating to say, yeah, go ahead, have your hearing, you know?
I'd like to know why they want to,
Yeah.
make it that way. I think your
Because they don't want
consistency
people
argument
having beach
makes a lot of
fires at
sense.
4 in the afternoon.
Right.
And they do
Have there
have,
been incidents with that or something? I mean, I wonder if, what sparked this, you know?
I know that they're trying to just tighten everything up and make it all consistent.
Right.
I mean, they've been doing bits and pieces all year.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the winter, when it gets dark earlier in the day, I really don't have a problem with it. I was just trying to think through, you know, is it difficult or dangerous for someone to start a fire when it's dark out? You know, should that be a consideration? You know, that's the only thing that comes to mind is
If
there a
it's 6
safety
o'clock,
issue?
it's not really dark, yeah?
Depends what time of year it is, though, and if you are starting a fire on the beach, you want to start it when it's light out
In
still. You don't
November,
want to,
December, it's dark by 5.
yeah. People have beach
That's the
fires in the
only
winter,
thought that
definitely.
comes-
Yeah, but,
that's the only thing that comes
You
to
know.
mind.
okay, I mean,
Just roll it around a little bit, talk to people we know, see what kind of comments we get before we
Is there a
respond.
sense of urgency from the
well,
village?
they're asking for us to, our expeditious review would be greatly appreciated.
And of course, it's.
And
yeah,
it's,
they
I mean,
could-
to me,
what
it's
if
just like a very
They
small
really
issue.
wanted it, though, one of them would be here to talk about
They
it.
sent a letter. They're gonna-
Exactly.
They're gonna send someone to talk about starting fires at
Yeah.
No, so I see how it is a minor, it's a little thing for them, it's just,
Seems like, yeah,
tightening up
yeah.
their,
But again,
their
it's,
code a little
it's,
bit, but
it's new
it's
business,
restrictive still.
it's on the agenda, with 2 weeks to mull it over, we make a decision, that's pretty standard for us, that's expeditious. You know what I mean? Expeditious.
I think it's silly. That's my opinion.
and what do you guys think? I wouldn't mind waiting 2 weeks, but I mean, I see
Yeah.
how it's not a major thing, I
What,
just,
but
I
again,
don't think it's dangerous.
what
I
do you
think we
expect
should
to
wait.
accomplish in 2 weeks?
Get some dialogue with the public.
But they're doing
Yeah.
that.
They will do that too.
They're doing that.
They will do that as well, but before.
So why do we have to get involved in that? I don't understand.
If we say, sure, fine, go for it, you're implying that you stand behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And there might be some reason in the next 2 weeks that someone you talk to would say, well, maybe I don't, maybe like the time frame, it gets dark earlier, something we're not aware of right now.
I don't know, I could very well see someone coming up to me and saying, you know, what'd
Yeah,
you
what are
guys
you
do?
doing?"
Why'd you guys let the villagers
Oh,
go
come
ahead
on.
and do this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whatever. I think it's foolish. Whatever you guys want to do, I don't,
Well, it's up to all of us.
it's up
so
to all you, right, exactly.
I wanna
I
wait
don't see
2
any
weeks.
harm in waiting 2 weeks,
No.
really. I see more harm
I
in
don't
rushing
either.
it than waiting, but
Well, it's 2 more weeks that they can't move ahead with their public hearing. We're not even putting out notice for people to come to us and express their concerns. I mean, you're just like, okay, we talked about it, now if anybody happened to hear it, they'll come and talk to us about it. That's silly.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Without a notice then.
all right.
I'm not putting out a notice for a
No,
village.
no. They'll put out their own notice and have their own hearing and all that, yeah, but
All right, we'll table
I'd
it,
like to
move
hear from
on.
people before we
Okay, I hope you go out and
decide to
search for
endorse
them.
it. I'll ask some people what they think.
Make sure it's the right people.
Okay.
And make sure they go to the hearing in the village to express their concerns. Okay, we have a letter from Brad Lowen on the Fisheries Committee. As the chair of the East Hampton Town Fisheries Committee, I am writing to ask your help in funding a project undertaken by the Fisheries Committee. The town board has recognized the economic, social, and historic importance of fisheries to the town, and as such has established and funded with a small budget, the activities of the committee. The Fisheries Committee is advisory to the town board on all matters concerning fisheries. Fisheries represented by the committee are commercial fisheries in all its aspects, for higher recreational fisheries, and aquaculture. We also consider questions of the marine trades, the the environment, and regulations and laws where applicable. The town board has given the committee freedom to interact with all government agencies concerning fisheries while being informed of our activities and maintaining veto. The town board knows we're seeking funding for this project. The committee has noted that there is no comprehensive socioeconomic data for any fishery in New York State. Though there is information about particular fisheries, it's localized, dated, and usually biased. The committee strongly believes it's necessary for the industry to have a comprehensive regional and fair study done by credentialed personnel in order to present our point of view to agencies and governments that manage the fisheries. No one knows, not even us, how many people work in the industry, how far-reaching and dependent other businesses are on us, our value or the community impact, and other questions the study would answer. In other words, we need to know our socioeconomic standing when discussing the fisheries. The committee has undertaken the task of securing a study. We believe that Cornell University, through its cooperative extension program, has the credentials and experience to accomplish the study and present a superior product. They have agreed to do it for us. The cost of the comprehensive study will be $100,000, and it will encompass the 5 East End towns. Excuse me. The cost for the same study for East Hampton alone will be the same, and to include other towns is not significantly more intensive. It's the committee's understanding that less money will diminish the ability of Cornell to cover all aspects of the industry, and we feel this is the last and only opportunity to get it done right, no matter the cost. The study would take more than a year to complete. All monies raised will go directly to Cornell. Neither the town nor the committee will be responsible for the money. We have attempted to gain funding from a number of sources. We've applied for various grants and been successful in getting $25,000 from the New York Industrial Authority and $10,000 from the town of East Hampton. We've gotten commitments from Southampton and Southold towns for unspecified grants, and we'll speak to other local governments. Suffolk County said they have no money at all for such a project. We will ask our congressman for help when we can get an appointment to speak with him. However, we are still short of the amount we need to finish the study, and our ability to seek money might be restricted from many sources because we're a part of town government. In conversations with some trustees, it was mentioned that we might consider a contribution toward this vital project. Anything the trustees can do would be of the greatest help and deeply appreciated. So they're asking for a donation towards this project from the trustees.
What is the body? What is this body?
They want to do a socio-economic study of,
Who are they?
it's the
Writing that
Fisheries Committee. The Fisheries.
Town committee.
Town Fisheries Committee?
Yeah, yeah.
The Town Fishery Advisories Committee, I guess they're not officially part of the town.
Yeah, Arnold Leo and Brad Lowen and I don't remember
Guild-
who
Do they
else
have
was
any
part of
scope,
that.
any scope
Association.
of work that, they're a framework or an outline for this project? To approach Cornell, you would think they might have had a request for a quotation or something like that. And
Well,
would
I
just
don't
like
know
to
what they
see-
presented to Cornell, but the Cornell said it would cost them $100,000 to do the study, so.
And also just, what is the commitment of the other
Very round.
towns?
Did they give a
You know,
number that they were hoping to get from us?
No.
No.
If the town made a $10,000 contribution, maybe we should consider something along that lines.
I would like to see like what Rick just mentioned, scope of the study. Yeah.
Sounds like a valuable study, definitely.
We've had no interaction with the Fisheries Committee in years. And to have this now, like, where did this come from? What is,
I think our fisheries are important, but I think
Yeah.
we need to understand more about the direction of this project, and if there are 5 towns participating, and it looks like there's already $35,000 raised, what are the other towns going to be contributing?
yeah.
And who's doing the study again?
Cornell Extension.
Cornell Marine Cooperative Extension, Suffolk County.
Yeah, there must be something in writing that shows exactly what they're gonna do, if they could put a number on it.
Yeah, definitely.
If we could get a little more information
Yeah.
for the next meeting, I think we could have a better discussion about it.
Yeah.
Can you contact Cornell?
I
and
think it
ask
could be
them if they
valuable
could-
to our fisheries. and
Can
Well,
we-
to our
I would,
fishing
well, I
Right,
wonder
right,
if,
yeah,
if East Hampton's committed $10,000, they might have some, I can just see if they have a
Yeah,
copy.
or get back to Brad and see what he has.
Brad's out of town for the rest of the month.
So somebody else, it's from a Cynthia Lowen, right, the letter? Email
there,
wise, it's from,
Yeah.
Is
I don't know
Arnold
if there's something, yeah.
still- is Arnold
I don't know.
Like,
affiliated with
I think,
not with him.
I
I
don't
think
know.
Brad mentioned there is a number 2 person in the advisory
Is it
board.
Arnold?
No, it's not,
No.
it's someone else.
All right, yeah, let's gather some more information, but we should,
It's an interesting
Getting the
concept.
money,
if there's
or
something
is it,
sensible we can do to help our fisheries.
It would
we
go
should do it.
directly to
definitely.
Cornell.
Right.
There would, right?
If, anything that's contributed would go
Goes
directly to Cornell.
Cornell.
Yes.
Yeah, so-
Cornell may have something that's the
Right.
framework.
Right, but then that,
We could
the
reach out to
question
them,
is,
too.
like we have with Dr. Goldberg, we pay him to gather data.
Right.
That data is ours to do what we want. If Cornell's gathering this data, is there gonna be any ownership of it for the town or the trustees or the Fisheries Committee to then act on, you know?
It's a good question, yeah. I'd hope that if we donate, we'd get to see the data and
Right,
everything.
and it would- and if
have
other
it
towns-
Available to us, yeah.
Contribute, they would have a stake in that information as well.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like a great, I think we all agree it sounds like a great idea, and we want to see the
Yeah.
details so we can know how much to contribute.
Right.
All right, I'll see if I can get, basically, we're looking for a project description.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not saying no, I'd like.
Oh, yeah,
to
no,
know a
none of
little
us are.
information.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And a letter from Will Sharp. I'm writing you at the suggestion of Congressman Fred Thiel regarding erosion at the beach at Little Northwest Creek. The Nineveh Homeowners Association, of which I am a member, are concerned about how the creek has eroded the beach and is threatening the embankment of several homes. Is it possible to replenish with new sand? And if so, who would be the agency that would have authority for this to happen? Do the trustees have jurisdiction, or is this something we have to discuss with the DEC? Would it be productive to meet at the creek to discuss?
Well, I did trade some emails with Mr. Sharp, being part of the Northwest Committee, and I'm also familiar with the entrance to Little Northwest Creek from spending some time on the water there. And it has migrated to the west and is kind of now in front of some of the homes to the west. And it also has a lot of shoaling there, so I think the creek is struggling to really have good water exchange with outer Northwest Harbor. So it is an interesting opportunity to maybe help make an improvement to the health of the creek and to the beach in front of the homes to the west. So I had offered to meet with him down there if anyone would care to join me next week. And he was very
Yeah, I think I'd
receptive
like to go.
to having a meeting and discussing the potential for the project.
Would it be you're thinking something similar to Fresh Pond, where the
Yeah.
inlet needs to be cut open and
put back to where it was.
whatever
yeah.
comes out, we throw up on the beach?
Yeah, it might be a nice opportunity.
Yeah, I looked at the GIS photos over, since the 1970s, I think it was 63, maybe. And it's gradually been going more and more to the west, but, I mean, we're talking a 40-year period. So,
Put it back where it started.
yeah,
There's just a lot of shoaling, and the water exchange
Right.
is inhibited by that shoaling, and it's cutting a little bit
Yeah.
inland.
How wide is the inlet?
It varies. You know, there's a lot of shoaling out front, and there's a
Yeah.
couple of bumps in the stream,
Rick,
so to
that's
speak.
definitely
yeah,
up and up, right?
if the flow could be redirected, they'd have a nice
Yeah.
You
beach
mean
in front of
beach or
them.
the creek
Nice.
itself?
The creek and the beach.
Well, I imagine the beach itself, I mean, you're not going to ask to put sand inside of a creek.
Well, it's just that the creek mouth is now facing west
Yeah,
instead
no,
of
I know
north.
exactly. I know
If
what
the
you're
mouth
talking-
is
I know-
straightened out to where it originally was,
Yeah.
nothing has to be done in front of those houses. They have this gigantic shoal
Yeah,
in
good.
front of them.
Yeah.
And ownership-wise, we have leeway to play with that there? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I have to see surveys.
It's not like a Georgia situation where we have a little bit
the
of
land,
tiny.
the land to the east, is it, would be, yeah, that would be the east, is state land. So it's not gonna be that easy.
Right.
I think, you know,
The beach and the bottom line there, though,
conveyances
should
in
be.
Barcelona Neck.
Should be, yeah. But I'm not
Original
completely sure.
conveyances, in the very, or there were early conveyances of the wetlands on either side. And those are not well described, because those go back to like the mid-1600s. I mean, you know, certainly we can assume and take the position that we own the beach. It's hard to prove one way or the other. In front of Nineveh, don't know, you know, you'd want to see what the old maps and surveys show, and, you know, did title run to the bluff, or did title run to the beach, or did the title run to the bay? You know, what were the conveyances? As to the creek itself, I don't even know that. You know, Northwest Creek, we know all the conveyances went to the creek. Little Northwest Creek is a very narrow creek. So I'm not even, you know, sure, I'd have to look at a tax map. Little Northwest Creek, I don't even know the tax map shows as being within the state land, or, oh, sorry, remember, it's very narrow, you know, so.
All of this.
Look, we can certainly act as though we own the beach. I mean, someone can prove otherwise, I think, you know, you can get involved. I just don't know what you'll do other than, you know, you'd have to dredge, you'd probably have to dredge it back to a more easterly location.
Yeah.
And then over time, it might migrate back to the west again, but.
Right. I think it's a good excavation project.
But someone's gonna have to pay for it, you know, someone's gonna have to pay to excavate.
Right.
Right.
And the DEC is gonna have to approve it.
It's
The
a whole
state would
project.
be involved, because the state will claim some connection, because they own the wetlands at Northwest Creek, they own all the land around it.
Yeah, the upland areas, there's a state park.
Right, well, the state wetland, the state wetlands were acquired
here.
before and separate from Barcelona Neck itself. The wetlands in Northwest Creek are a separate state acquisition. They predate the acquisition of Barcelona Neck.
Used to come out through here.
So these people have kind of their work cut out for them. They get the state behind it, and then if you guys go along with it, then they can do it. But they're gonna have to wrestle with the DEC and state parks.
Yeah,
Or
this
state DEC, because DEC actually owns the wetlands. The Little Northwest Creek wetlands are DEC managed property, and of course DEC will,
Both sides of the creek?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe Little Northwest Creek is within a state wetland. What's that?
Parks, I thought, owned that area.
State parks only has operating jurisdiction over the golf club. DEC owns the woodland at Barcelona Neck, and they own the wetlands at Little Northwest Creek in separate acquisitions. So they're dealing with the state DEC on an ownership and a regulatory level, and they presumably are dealing with you too. So you can definitely encourage them, but, you know, maybe you want to set up a joint meeting where they want to set up a joint meeting with DEC. DEC is definitely going to have something to say with this.
All right, Rick, thank you.
Seems like a problem for all the north-facing, waterways and creeks and things like that. All the ones on the north side seem to really be filling in big time, like Hog Creek and stuff too.
Yeah,
know what I
but
mean?
when you
It's a
meet with
bigger-
them, Rick, maybe just see if any of the homeowners has a copy of their survey or their deed.
Yeah.
Which might give us,
More information.
yeah,
Now, I don't know what they claim to own to the water or
Right.
not. They may not.
yeah.
And if they don't, then that means we should own the difference.
I couldn't really tell from the letter whether they mean, they're just concerned about the inlet there and,
Yes,
or
this is
or
what
if they're- or
it's
if they're really
doing.
concerned about properties
It's like
that are
running
kind
in
of
front of all the houses here.
If you read,
along the interior creek at all?
if you redirect
Direct
the
line,
inlet, I think you're gonna really
Yeah, I see now, okay.
solve the problem. You know, so once that inlet is
Yeah, it's not just another
cleaned up.
one there in danger. Great, looks like a good thing to look into more then.
Yep, yeah, because this is just all shoaled all the way up,
Right, and this
you
makes
know,
sense,
so
yeah.
if it just was a nice deep cut, it could really help the water exchange. And-
Yeah.
And the beach would be protected in the process.
Yeah, looking at the image really
Yep, makes it clear.
sums it up, yeah.
You're right.
All right,
They were from the
let's move on to old business.
I guess this is what they're objecting to, right?
Georgia Pond, dredging of the south inlet and the emergency, well, south inlet, that still being held up. The emergency opening. Last thing we got was the notice of incomplete application.
But they wanted the MOU in that.
Well, this is the emergency opening.
That's the same thing, they wanted the MOU in that.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So it's,
So that's tabled also at this point.
we spoke about the bottleneck, right?
Yep. Committee reports, Accobonac Creek, mosquito no spray trial, that's a little misleading, it's,
Shifted gears,
We've
but-
been doing
I've been going out
a
in the
different
mornings.
study, you've been going out,
Mondays,
Bill's been going out, so you guys wanna report what you've been doing?
Sure, I mean, I went there this morning, Bill came by as well, and meeting up with some people from Natural Resources and using our GPSs that Rick got for us, the little Garmin's, and as well as the Natural Resources people use their GPS, and we dip into parts where water has pooled in the marsh to get little water samples with like a long stick and a cup on it, and that way it's a white cup, so you can usually get a small sample of water. When you look into it, you can see any mosquito larvae that are wriggling in there and stuff, as well as tons of other cool invertebrates and little back swimmers and stuff. And just see if, what's there. Are there mosquito larvae in this particular spot? And then if you find a little bit or a lot or none, you can mark it down, and we have data points for all these spots, so we'll have, real-time data each week of individual points along the marsh and develop a map of each week, which areas had more or less mosquitoes. This way we can have more data, more robust data, so that we can help, help vector control determine when they will do spraying, so that we can hopefully reduce unnecessary spraying and, time it better, that kind of thing. So we've been seeing, not a huge amount. I mean, there's definitely little areas where you'll see some larvae, and then many areas where you don't see any at all.
They're trying to refine the spraying areas.
Yeah.
Trying to get it,
Make sure it is
minimize it.
minimal as possible.
But the spraying itself is gonna be a different process, right? It's
Well,
gonna be
the
a
inf-
granular,
The granular they started using already.
okay.
They're using a granular component now instead of using a water-based
liquid, yeah.
spray. The granular stuff does not drift as far, and it doesn't get stuck to the leaves and stuff, it gets down to where they want it to get, which seems to be, somewhat of an improvement. But I think we're gonna put all this material we gathered together at the end of the trial area and have a meeting with vector control to see if we can modify the spray areas, by continuing to do more investigation, to give them more precise data, to try and get them to, impact their spraying areas.
Has there been any interaction with the interns that we were a part of? Did you
Yes.
interact with any of them
Yes.
or work with any of them?
Yeah, they're good. There are 2 or 3 interns, 2 mainly that I've worked with. Just Senya and one other one, I forget her name. But they've been great. I believe they're going back to school in 2 or 3 weeks.
One of them hurt her ankle upstate or something like that.
Oh, that was probably the third one. Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's been the 2. Yeah, they've seemed to be great. I've been talking to them about, their studies, and they're knowledgeable about ecology and better areas out here. One of them's to study marine ecology and things. So, yeah, do you have any particular questions about that? But, I mean,
I was
they,
just curious if they were
One-
engaged. We'd, talked about participating, in funding the project.
What
and I
happens
was
when they
just
go back to school?
well, they're hoping to get some kind of credit out of it, I think.
No, but I mean, do we need more interns? Do
Well,
we
it's
need
gonna be
people
done
to
around the
follow
same
up?
time. They're only gonna miss 1 week, as far as I understand. We have,
Oh.
4 more weeks of
The
doing this?
program will stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
they have to go back 1 week before the program stops, so
see.
they won't be there the last week, but
You
they'll be
can-
there the next.
We can probably gather the data without them if it comes
Yeah.
down to filling out
Natural
the
Resources
data
is
set.
also involved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mark over there and Melissa,
Mhm.
and then we have myself and Bill going out there too, so it really doesn't take more than 4 people to go out and get data. But the interns have been really valuable, and I don't know if they've done enough time to get credit, but there was talk about, when we were doing it this morning, about whether or not we could possibly pay them a small stipend or something for the work
Yeah,
they've done.
I think that's what we discussed before we,
I think that'd be nice.
That was already in the proposal.
yeah, it was in a
Yeah.
proposal.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right, just
and
making
it's
sure
gonna
that's-
be, it's gonna be a lot less than
What we expected.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Bill, do they know if the granules less invasive to our,
I think you can use
Shellfish.
less of it. You know, I think you get it more precisely aimed, so it doesn't wind up drifting off, you know, off the properties. But it, yeah, it's still poison, still kills little fish.
It's still gonna get in the
Yeah,
system.
it's still gonna, but
Now-
I had asked I'd asked the girls to have their student coordinator try and contact our office. And I was, you know if anybody, has anybody ever called? We gotta follow up on that with them.
That's something that they brought up this morning too, that there is somebody like that and that
Yeah,
they
I-
need to contact us, yes.
We,
They
I
haven't,
asked
I
them
believe they haven't yet.
to
I don't know
talk
if
to her
Lori's.
and have her contact the office to see, you know, what the process would be. So we can give them a
I
letter.
think that's in the works now after what we talked
Okay.
about this morning.
Yeah, all right.
But Melissa from Natural Resources was talking to them a little more about that, and they mentioned, you know, that have your coordinator contact, you know,
Yeah.
the trustee office. So I told them I'd discuss it at the meeting a little bit tonight.
Okay, and as far as that stipend goes, we're talking about $100 a day for each of, intern, so. And it's gonna be what, about $500 per, approximately 5 or 6
Per intern, yeah.
per intern.
Seems great.
Yeah.
Seems like something they'd be happy with.
I think,
They deserve to get, you know, some kind of compensation for sure. They've done a good job.
Lionhead Beach Association Bulkhead Repair Inspection Report.
Have you looked at that application yet?
The bulkhead repair for Lionhead.
Yeah,
We looked at it a little while back,
okay. I had looked at it.
because we got that a while
yeah.
ago, right? And then we asked them for more info, which was,
Yeah, here, I don't know if you want to look at it right now, but basically,
We've received the information accordingly.
yeah.
right.
So the only concern I would have at this point is that the cover letter and the project description talk about the project being done in 2 phases over several years. Phase 1 being this year, 210 linear feet of the bulkhead and increasing the return by 20 feet. I also see on the project plan that was submitted to us, the Phase 2 that's described in the project plan. But there's some additional bulkheading that's noted on the plan, which is not included in the project description. So that, number 1, would have to be clarified. But basically, if this was approved, it would be subject, you know, just Phase 1. If they want to do Phase 1 this year, if they want to do Phase 2 in another year, they would come back for a permit for Phase 2.
Yeah, I feel like they should just apply for phase 1,
Yeah,
and then we can worry about that and worry
Yeah.
about phase 2 when it comes
right, right.
up. It's great to know ahead of time, but
Yeah,
I remember that being a big factor, yeah.
yeah. They have not noted in their application who their contractor would be, so that should be provided to us prior to the start of the project if we were to approve it. Other than that, it would just be all our standard, you know, conditions. I don't see a major problem. So that's my only concern with that. So whether you want to take a closer look before we actually make a motion or whatnot, I'm okay with that too.
No, I remember, you know, looking it over initially and everything, and things looked fine, except for basically that question of why are they doing these 2 phases, why are they giving both of us at once, you know?
Right,
Let's just
right.
take phase 1
Okay.
first. So, I mean, the phase 1 stuff looks fine, but that, your question about
Yeah.
the description of the phase 2 stuff is obviously a really good question, and
Yeah.
and if we can just kind of make a motion to approve the first phase of the project, I would be
Right.
supportive of that, I
Yep.
think.
That would be to replace 210 linear feet of existing bulkhead along Gardner's Bay and construct an additional 20-foot extension to the bulkhead return at the northwest terminus,
It'll go right to the edge of the beach grass, it looks like, huh?
edge to the edge of the beach grass. Yep, yeah.
Do they have to put in another application for phase 2?
In the, yeah,
Okay.
in the future, yeah, we're just
I think that sounds
approving
fair.
phase 1.
Who's the consultant on that?
Mr. Bennett, DB Bennett. Yeah. Yeah, and I was talking in the office too, Arlene is working on just getting we got a letter from Lionhead, again, following up on our discussion of earlier, signed by a gentleman who, the last application was submitted by Mr. Carone, and now I knew him as the president of the Lionhead. This new gentleman, I'm not aware of him, although Arlene said she's been at our meetings with regard to other issues. So there is a letter in the office signed by him authorizing this application, so if that's sufficient for us now, yeah.
The only question that remains, I guess, is, I don't remember if they gave some justification for why they need to increase the return by 20 feet?
That I did
Do you
not
know?
see. This is determined, so maybe, which way would they be going?
Looks like that's the return. That's
Foreground,
comes up, and then the
Yeah.
harbor inlet's over there.
yeah.
Right.
So, let's see if it's in the project description. Oops.
What do you guys think? I mean, they're extending the return on the bulkhead 20 feet. Is that something that concerns anyone else?
It's right,
The return's just gonna anchor it
it's
into
right
the.
here.
Yeah, is that, is
Yeah.
it eroded considerably and that's why, or, you know? That's my only thing, 'cause, you know, now that they extended, it's going right up there to the beach grass there. And that's lifted as bottom bluff, which almost makes it look like it goes into the bluff.
Where is the channel? Is it relevant to this? This is the channel.
There's the inlet, so this is the rest, and the boat comes around and then
It
returns
almost
in
creates a
here.
wharf.
They kind of anchor it in there like that, but yeah, it does kind of,
And where does it currently stop?
20 feet less than that.
Okay, so,
I think that little line right there. See that little line that's just sticking out?
so this was the former end. And I'm not an engineer, but, you know, what
Right.
is the benefit of them going further in? Is that to better anchor it into the bluff? So that's not gonna get eroded behind it? I mean, maybe there is an
Smiling.
advantage to it.
It
Right,
may
it's-
be
that's
because
fine.
Eventually,
Yes,
it's
really.
going to
if
erode
you
behind
see, here's the
it.
bluff and here's the beach grass,
That's
so
what's happening
I'm
here.
thinking it's coming around. It's, what do they call it, scouring around?
Yeah,
Yeah.
around it.
So they want to bring it back to the beach grass line to prevent that.
Yeah, I'm not a coastal engineer either, but I would think that that would just make it continue to scour out more, because it'd be a hard object in there.
Well, it's just gonna
Oh,
continue
yeah.
to scour.
Yeah.
That's what
And most
bulkheads
of the
do, I guess.
replenishment takes place via the dredging work that comes out of the inlet in the bottom land. So that's typically an annual process. You know, is there an opportunity to ask or have a condition that says a certain amount of dredge, you know, beach-compatible dredge spoil needs to be placed near the return during the annual maintenance dredging
Wow.
to minimize potential
The
scouring
only
and
problem with
erosion?
that is they share that project with Clearwater.
Right.
So you- they can't say Clearwater's gonna give us
Yeah.
enough sand.
Why don't we
to do-
just ask
I
Mr.
think-
Bennett? Let's just
I was
say,
gonna say, why
Yeah.
don't we get Drew to come in and
Yeah.
explain this to
Yeah,
us?
it's kind of a
Yeah.
technical project, and I'm
Yeah.
not really
Yeah.
clear on the
yeah, repair,
impact.
replacement, you know,
Yeah,
I don't have a
I
problem with
just-
that, but.
This goes
okay.
beyond in place in
Right.
kind.
Okay.
How long has this been before us, though?
We got, no, that's July.
And when do they want to start? I want to hold
The
them
original
up.
application,
I feel like it's been
where'd it go?
a little while that we've had this.
May.
Yeah,
But that's because we looked at it, we asked for additional information.
right.
Well, we're still
came
within the
in-
plover window, so they can't do anything anyway, if he comes to the next meeting.
Okay, good point.
If we're not going to hold them up, I'd say
All right, great, let's yeah.
invite them in.
Let's invite Drew over.
And if someone from the community wants to come in as well.
Sure.
Okay, great.
All right.
All right, Clearwater Beach Property Owners Association, bulkhead replacement.
Yeah, and again,
The
I
other
mean,
side?
it's something they've done in the past, it's not, you know, not gonna bother me, but, they are requesting that, we issue a 10-year permit to be consistent with the other towns and state and federal regulatory agencies. This is from Inner Science, and I know they make that request a lot, and they know they're gonna get told no. No. It's like, you know, you get to do your project. They have not included, you know, the estimated cost for their project. But again, it's mostly just bulkhead replacement. I didn't see anything in here for any additional. But it is a little more it looks complicated, so I think a little bit more time to review it and just see if any questions come up.
Is
This
Jim
one
Walker
was-
doing this then? Is there a
Yeah,
chance? Okay.
yeah, this one just came in July 18th, so,
Yeah, I don't see why
Yeah.
Jim can't come in then.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to hear from Jim, I think. These
Yeah.
projects are fairly
We could get
complex.
Jim and Drew on the
Yeah.
same day to talk about both of them. I mean, that would be,
Yeah.
Yep,
They kind of-
okay,
And what's the synergy of the
Yep.
projects and
Yeah.
okay.
the benefits? You know, they're replacing creosote lumber with, you know, something that's more environmentally friendly. Are there
I
benefits?
think
you know,
Clearwater is metal right now,
Metal.
yeah,
All right. So-
parts of it anyway.
Mhm.
Okay,
And, you know, are the
yeah,
proposed materials listed in the project plan currently?
yeah. Okay,
All right, and Maslin, a request for extension to sand placement permit at
Okay.
307 Kings Point Road.
that one I had looked at today, and it's not actually just simple sand replacement. They're actually asking to install another layer, another row of rocks, which,
Sand replacement with
Yeah.
rocks?
yeah.
That's a
not-
stretch.
Yeah, not in favor of that. When I did
What are
look,
they,
yeah, when I did look in the file, I see that they had been issued a permit in July of 2016 to place 130 cubic yards of sand and plant beach grass. The photos that are in the file right now, prior to that, or maybe with this application, I'm gonna forget, it does show that there's not a lot of vegetation above where they put their rocks in and stuff years ago. There's no documentation that we were noticed of the start of the project or completed it or pictures. So we have no idea really to know whether they actually did that project or not. So at this point, if they want to amend this application to indeed request sand placement with maybe some shoreline fencing to help stabilize or that matting
I know
with
it's
some
really steep
planting.
there.
Well, it
Yeah,
appears they
I've been
already
there, I've
have
seen
a
it.
full revetment.
they do.
So we'll-
Yeah, but this is another, they're saying that it's being overwashed,
so they want to
but they want
go
to
on
go,
top of it.
yes,
Okay.
yep. And
it
without some
exposed?
document, huh?
Is it exposed?
Yeah, yeah. But without, without some, documenting the fact that simple sand placement, what's the word I want? Restoration of your shoreline property, that's, somewhat to be expected if you have a hard structure in front of your property. So without, showing that they've attempted that in the past, I'm not comfortable with just saying, well, let's throw some more rocks up there. I would like to see them try a softer approach. So, this application for revetment repair, I would actually make a motion to deny it as it's submitted and request an application for a soft approach.
Second.
I know the guy who lives there. I'm just gonna abstain.
Okay.
Are there any photos of the project? 'Cause I'm not familiar with it.
Let me see if
honestly.
it's in here or if I saw them in the file. I'll check.
Here's the property. See,
Yeah.
the yard
Here's
is
some photos.
eroding from the top.
He keeps his boats down there.
Yeah,
and
there's
has
some
a
metal
staircase there and
stakes.
stuff.
You can see where there's some bent metal stakes that have been left in the bluff above where they installed the rocks.
Is this the property here?
Yeah,
To the
This is
right
their
of the
steps,
walkway?
stairs that go down a little
Mhm.
bit, yeah.
yeah, it includes the walkway.
So it's washing over and scouring behind?
That's what they're
The
saying,
revetment.
But look
yeah.
at this step.
Look at the adjacent property.
I'm going to suggest that it's runoff from the lawn that's causing the problem. It's not water coming from the bottom.
There's not a lot of buffer upland of the,
No.
So if they had done the sand placement and planting
I
last
think-
year, it might have helped, but. we
sand
don't-
placement
yeah.
or sand fencing.
Right, yeah,
beach
some
grass,
vegetation,
planting.
yeah.
It looks to me
Yeah.
like it needs some serious terracing or something.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's an upland
Yeah.
solution that
Yeah,
might want to be
it's not-
considered before more
From what I've
Yeah.
seen there, the
Yeah.
top parts of it are kind of
Mhm.
falling in, where the
Yeah,
vegetation
the-
is
the lawn
falling
is-
down, and the vegetation is
lawn is
falling down the
falling,
cliff too.
yeah.
Yeah.
which place is it here?
I think there's certainly a lot of structure there to work with as a base of a soft
307
solution
Kings Point.
approach.
Hot Creek Lane?
I don't have that.
And I think a modified application would be,
Maybe we should work with them on developing a
See what-
solution that would
Modify the
work.
application as
like-
opposed to just denying the one that was submitted? Okay,
we could consider that, maybe invite the applicant in or have a subcommittee meeting with the applicant to discuss that.
okay. Yeah.
So you're not gonna make a motion to do that?
Yeah, I'll rescind my motion to deny the application, and we'll make a request that they modify the application significantly.
Completely, yeah.
That might be the best.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
okay,
I would second that motion.
okay.
Wait, what do you want?
Making a motion that would
You're
would ask,
rescinding the motion that you made,
Right, right. Well, we didn't vote on it, so, I mean,
so you don't need to.
No, we're just not going to accept it as,
she made it, she withdrew, it's fine.
Yeah.
And you made a motion that we will
So
ask the
we're gonna,
applicant to
we're
modify.
gonna ask the applicant to modify his
Right.
thing and
Fix
get more
make
information.
a motion.
Modify
to
the
request
application.
the applicant modify their application, and Tyler seconded that one.
all in
So the
favor?
first one's just a moot point.
Aye. So we want him to modify the application. All right. Beaches, adopt the beach program, agreement and application.
Yeah, I actually do have a resolution that I wrote to introduce if we want to finally make this happen. I just don't know if anyone else has any other questions about it. The agreement document's finished, and the only other piece that hasn't finished coming together fully is the bag thing. But I worked with a company who could make bags that would have town seal, or seal on them, the town seal or whatever we need. We do both seals, as far as I understand, we agreed on. They said with 2,500 bags minimum, but they haven't given me a cost because I need to give them the whole thing with the seal on it, and then they could price it out. Before I go ahead and do that, I don't know. I gotta keep working with the bag company to figure out those bags. But I've written a resolution for the program. Would people feel comfortable if I introduce it tonight, or?
Did you get my email from a few weeks ago?
I believe so.
Okay.
Which, can you tell me what it,
It was.
Get a lot of emails from you.
It was again, the clarification at the end about, of the trustees of the freeholders and the commonality, not,
oh, sure. Yeah,
Trustees
that's fine.
and
That's fixed, yeah.
that was, other than that, it was
Yeah,
little
yeah.
thing, nothing. I think I had a question about the bags too,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
And the
go ahead.
stick, is that appropriate that we would supply a stick with a nail or
yeah.
whatever? Just wondering if that would be, giving someone a weapon.
I don't know if it's really necessary.
Okay.
If we want to get something like that later for, I don't
So,
know,
so
maybe.
what we're doing is we're allowing people to adopt sections of beaches. We're gonna supply everything to them to do the cleaning? Is that what I'm understanding? We're gonna pay.
Basically, the bags.
We're buying the
so that
bags,
The
we're
bags
buying
are
the-
not mixed up with other people's bags that might just be
Right, I
left, you know,
understand,
so the
right.
parks will come pick them up at the road ends.
Right.
We're supplying
The
the
equipment
bags.
to clean it up,
There's not really anything else. I mean, maybe we should buy gloves too for people. I don't know.
but if they're adopting it, well,
I
what are
just
they
think it's-
providing?
They're the ones cleaning up the beach. I mean, we can go too and join them, but
So the cost would be the trustee bags.
that's the only cost that would,
So on,
that
perhaps on an annual
we would
basis,
incur.
we buy X number of bags for the program. The adopters of each beach would come in and get their allotment of bags, and they're kind of off to the races. They would schedule their own cleanups, and
yeah,
they
there's
work
a,
somewhat
there's a timeframe.
autonomously.
It's four cleanups throughout the summer months, preferably, once every 2 months, and then once during the winter months.
And what if they don't live up to the obligation?
Then they are no longer part of the program, and they would have their benefits revoked, essentially, which are their gratitude is shown to them in the paper and on our website. And there's a part that's optional for a plaque that they would pay to get made that would show their
That's similar to the
commitment
town
to
adopt a
keeping
road
that beach.
program.
Yeah. And we kind of nixed the sign idea.
That's fine. No, I mean,
Seems
take
like
recogni-
more trouble than it's worth for me.
It's a PR thing.
It is.
Could be helpful.
If you'd like to read your resolution.
Sure.
I picked the beach up,
My printer wasn't working. What happened?
put something in for me. You know, I mean,
Is it that much trouble from us, though? I mean, I don't feel like it's
No,
too much
just do
trouble
it.
for us or our end.
No, you know what I mean?
But that could happen and
Bring
then,
my own
and
bag.
it's not, but do you?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, when I go to the beach, I pick stuff up and I leave, you know, but.
right, but,
The Adopt a Road program has been, I think, fairly successful and well represented.
Yeah, and more public beach cleanups and more public discussion about beach cleanup.
well, you encourage
It's
it.
always
I think it's great to
helpful.
encourage it, and,
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll see what the reception is to it.
mhm.
We'll see what you have.
Not a
Well-
huge commitment of funds or anything.
No,
Right.
no, I
Stop
just
doing
wanted
it.
to be clear of what we're proposing here,
of course.
that's all.
Okay.
So I'll introduce the following resolution, which is, whereas the trustees and freeholders of the Commonwealty of East Hampton are charged with stewardship of town beaches and their ownership, and as this body is public, and thus must do what is best for the interest of the general public at large, and further, as the cleanliness of beaches is in the best interest of the public, and keeping beaches clean from trash and litter that may either wash up from currents, blow to the beach from other parts of town, or be left on the beach by beachgoers, requires constant vigilance and community support and involvement. And furthermore, as partnership between publicly elected bodies, members of the public, and private organizations and businesses is beneficial to the efficiency and thoroughness of public works. Therefore, the creation of a program which allows the public to perform regular beach cleanups in an organized fashion in cooperation with the East Hampton trustees would be beneficial to the environment, the town, and the public. Be it resolved that the trustees and freeholders of the Commonwealty of East Hampton create on this day, Monday, August 14th, 2017, the Adopt a Beach program as outlined in the official agreement and program outline document, which stipulates that a local individual, group, or organization, be it public or private, may adopt a stretch of beach for regular cleanup, the frequency and nature of which will follow the definitions set out in the accompanying document, and be it further understood that the act of adoption confers no benefits of ownership, exclusive rights, or any other differences of use for the adopting party than are bestowed upon any other member of the public.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Anyone second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Okay, great. Program's been created.
And you
Now
have-
I'll work on getting
You had the other documents. for
groups
the-
and businesses
yes.
to sign up and
Yep.
adopt some of the stretches of beaches that we already have in mind, which include the southern beaches in Gancid, and the Gerard Drive is another one that's already
But
kind
you
of
also
delineated.
had forwarded to us a copy of their actual agreement.
The agreement,
With
yes.
the hold harmless in there, and
Yes.
so this is, it's very well set up.
Okay, and there's copies of this for Lori for the office.
Yes, I'll make sure
She
to
has
get
a
them all to you
master-
guys. Yeah, I'll
master
get
file.
the reso to her via email and the
Copies
agreement.
of
of
all the
course.
supporting documents. Great.
All right, great.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an idea that hopefully can help, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we can be involved too,
Yeah,
and do our own beach
sounds
cleanup still, of course, and anybody,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't preclude anyone else from doing any beach cleanups of any kind, so.
Okay, great. Next, 199 Lily Pond Lane, LLC, rock revetment construction.
Right. This, technically, this is a repair, reconstruction. Jim and I had been out to the site prior to our last meeting, and we were to receive some additional information to go along with the application, which I haven't seen yet. But in addition to that, Jim's not here this evening, so I would make a motion that we just table it until Jim is back and ensure we have all of his questions and concerns answered as well.
Interesting, it's like right across the street from the other guy.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Okay, so we'll
Yeah, a
table
lot
that.
of work going on there.
Busy spot.
Yeah.
Okay, Plover protection list of snow fencing restricting vehicles and dogs received from Juliana Duryea.
We had discussed getting some updated information from Juliana back in May. I had, at the end of May, sent her a letter requesting that information, and we never did receive it, but I did see that she forwarded this, so I actually did go to the town board meeting last week where they discussed it. And, you know, for the most part, what's happening is, it does seem that there's not a lot of detailed information going back between our two boards to understand where this fencing is, and the concerns I was getting from the public with regard to why is, you know, the amount of fencing installed in one area less or more than another area, and who's making those decisions and blah, 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 blah. We had some discussion about volunteers. And it was a little, you know, we're not quite sure if there are actually volunteers helping Juliana or not, but that we should have more in place in the future. Trying to get some information from the entire East Coast, the other communities, on how far along in their plover protection they might be, because it's not just East Hampton that needs to meet the magic number of 2.5 fledges for 5 years, or 1.5 fledge, I forget what the number is now. It does seem to change, I can tell you that, over the last 20 years. But to see how that number is doing on the East Coast, so we might have an idea of just if the measures in place to this point are actually doing anything to help recover this species or not. Yeah.
It's my understanding that it's not each township, though, that's responsible, isn't it, a geographic area?
It's like the birds themselves are the East Coast, yes, but like we have a plover program, Southampton has a plover program. If you're a private homeowners, like, you know, places where the beaches are owned by those homeowners,
Right.
They would do their plover protection. They would be responsible for ensuring that, you know, they themselves didn't harm, harass, or whatever the birds.
I guess,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm correct. I used to understand that, say, Suffolk County was responsible for X amount of birds per the county, or just as an example. So it's not East Hampton, but we're almost a victim of our own success.
Yes.
Because we're so successful, other areas don't have to be. So we're carrying the load for others who aren't doing as much.
It would be interesting to find out, yeah, because we shouldn't be doing that, you know, but we are definitely
I may be
carrying
wrong,
our load.
but
Yeah.
I remember a number of years ago that seemed to
Yeah,
be the
but
case.
it's the whole East Coast region that needs to
Right.
get to that magic number and maintain it for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of
In
information
terms
out
of
there.
numbers of nests,
Fledglings,
fledglings.
yeah, birds that learn how to fly.
And then
So-
they'll pull them from the endangered species list, or what? I mean,
Right, yeah, every 5 years.
it's just kind of silly, because it's like,
Yeah.
with the wolves, you know, it's like the same thing. It's like, well, people, you know, wolves are protected, and people didn't shoot them, and then they pull them off the endangered species list because they're doing good, and then they just do bad again. People start killing them, I don't know.
Well, I guess it's you know, trying as humans to understand what is it that's causing the most detriment to the species.
Right.
With the wolves, was it people hunting them, or once
Yeah,
they took them
in
off
that
the
case,
list,
yeah.
was it just like mange or something, you know, like we have with our
Right,
foxes?
so it's a different situation with plovers.
Yeah,
just-
so with the plovers, you know, it does seem also that our management plan that we agreed to with the town back in 1995 has been tweaked and modified and is not being implemented as per this agreement based on other guidelines that are coming through from DEC or federal government. And that is causing angst to people who are familiar with our plan. Of particular note is allowing pedestrians inside the plover nesting area once the birds hatch. See, originally, I don't agree with that. If we're going to protect that area, pedestrians should not be in that area until the birds are fledglings. The same as you don't want a loose dog in there, you know, but I don't think there would be any harm with fledglings to allow someone with a dog on a leash or under control to walk along our shoreline. I don't think they should be prohibited if the animal's under control. You know, so there's things that have been changed a little bit that are causing some angst. So it's, you know, it's something that I've tried really hard to, you know, to talk through with Juliana, Marguerite, Kim, Ms. Duryea, DeAndrea before that, you know, and it's a difficult it's a difficult program to implement, but we have been successful overall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's
good.
good
I
to
mean, it's good that
plovers in certain areas of
Yeah.
our beaches that seem to be
Right,
in strong numbers.
I went down and
Right,
checked them out at Indian
right.
Wells. I was watching for a while one day recently. Seeing
Yeah.
the terns, I saw plovers.
Mhm.
There are definitely
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
plovers there active, and there's still
yeah.
nests.
And this year, I mean, it was initiated maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but there's also a vegetation there might be more than one, but what sticks in my head is sea beach amaranth, which is also endangered. So following the plover season, Juliana was leaving up some fencing, symbolic string fencing to protect that vegetation, which then, made somebody else's blood boil.
Right.
And
that's also
I
the case
questioned
this year,
it.
the
Yeah,
case
questioned
from
it
what
this
I've
year
heard,
too, yes.
Which,
So, that's, yeah.
Well, I'd had some concerns
Yeah.
from people had asked me questions about it, so I went and I went down there and checked it out, and I also called Juliana and got info from her. And the way it was explained to me, Natural Resources, was that, there's still birds having nesting attempts now, and this year they've had to make more nesting attempts than they had in previous years, because there actually is a higher population of foxes this year, and the fox population always goes up and down, and foxes attempting to get at the birds and then the eggs and such has caused them to have to reattempt nesting multiple times. So it's, kind of
In a
going a
long
little bit
season.
later into the season than it has in some previous years.
Right.
But they're trying to, they've reduced the fencing to the areas where there are still nests, especially in Nepeag, and that they do plan to leave some very small amounts of fencing up in some areas to protect certain plants once the plovers have fledged and left as well.
Right,
But that will
right.
be greatly reduced
And
from what it is now.
Yeah, and it's just like, the questions or comments are, how come there's no protected birds or plants in front of any wells? Or, areas where you see a lot of people, it's like, why? It's a program that, without community support, gets the bad rap of seeming to be an excuse for limiting access to the beaches. That's the bottom line.
Right, it's easy to
And that's what's
misunderstand.
happened, and it's happened, before, so we need to now get on top of it again and get the community behind it again. And a lot of it has to do with the number of people who are out there on the beaches implementing it. If Juliana is the only person out there, the only way she can protect nest sites is to shut down access points, and that just blows everybody's mind. You can't do that. Whereas if you have someone who's in place to monitor a particular site every other day, every third day, you can abide by this agreement, which is like a 50-meter, radius around the nest site.
You almost need like an internship program for
Right,
plover
which,
monitors.
yeah, and it had been in place years ago. The trustees had supplied hats, so they'd be recognizable, disposable cameras, the little take forms in case there was a problem. That we had a little day seminar thing at Town Hall for training people. And again, it's like you get in a groove and everything's going along really well, and then it just starts to phase away without paying attention to it. So it's something that we're gonna have to pay attention to now again, and see if we can get,
Sounds like a nice way to offer an
Yeah.
opportunity for somebody who's studying that kind of thing, who wants to get some kind of,
yep. 'Cause like
volunteer,
we said,
unpaid
we're
internship
our
kind of thing
own-
for the summer.
our own worst enemy, like, here, we're limiting accesses to our beaches, and we are meeting that fledgling quota, but nothing's being done about the predators. Why not? Something should be done.
Well, if they're dogs,
know.
that's what, but
Right.
foxes, you're not gonna do something, what do you,
Well, what U.S. Fish and Wildlife put electric fence up on the fence down there to prevent
that
predators.
just seems unnatural to me,
It
where you're-
does,
you're
yeah, it
really like
seems- it
tampering
seems
so
like
much with the
too much.
ecosystem that
Yeah.
it's gonna cause unintended consequences.
But, at what point, if the East Coast communities are not keeping up with their rate, at what point can we consider something else, like, hatching these things out in order to reintroduce them to the wild?
That doesn't happen.
It happened with eagles, it's happened with other species, Bill. I know you and I don't agree with how
Yeah.
we should go forward with this, so let's not get argumentative. Let's just say there are other things that we can do to help protect the birds without, the angst of feeling like we're limiting access to the beaches.
I think the bottom line is that
the whole-
program's great, if it gets communicated better, it'll
Yeah.
prevent
Right.
misunderstandings and
Right.
miscommunication.
Which means we need to know where those fences are going before they go up.
Well, communication can always get better, and we had discussed maybe supplying tablets and stuff like that can actually transmit the information instantaneously. But the whole Plover program was started and designed to preserve access to the beaches. Because back when we trained all those volunteers and stuff, the federal government was going to shut down the beaches to vehicular traffic. And those programs were put in place to maintain the the tradition of using the beaches as much as possible. And I know Juliana and Melissa are out there, you know, they check on the birds 2 or 3 times a week, and they're both educated and trained people that find these things, and they do respond to comments and things. You know, looking at the whole data set again and checking out, they prepare annual reports, that they're available up and down the coast, and we should perhaps take a look at them. Yeah.
We have a long off-season coming
Yeah.
up. It's a great opportunity to take a look at the
So
program.
who do we get those annual reports from, Bill?
Probably
just
Fish
ask-
and Wildlife.
I would ask Fish and Wildlife, or Juliana would know, you know, where she sends hers.
Well, can I ask you to ask her to forward
Sure,
it to the
I'll-
trustees? Because she
No,
didn't
I mean,
respond to me.
when they do, I'm sure the annual reports are all public documents. I'm
Right.
sure they
I mean, I know we
prepare-
have the town's annual report, but if there's something from other communities,
We
you know.
can, yeah.
But basically, in our attempt to maintain the access, like you said years ago, when we put this plan in place, Fish and Wildlife might say, get the vehicles off the beach, end of story. That's what's gonna protect the birds. We went a step further and said, no, dogs, pedestrians, especially loose dogs. So we had signage, under control, walk the shoreline, slow your vehicle down, traverse the beach. People, don't go inside the beach. So we went above and beyond those guidelines. But now they're stepping back on everything else except the vehicles. That's the public perception. So we need to work on that.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
Georgica and Ponds, Phragmite control applications. I know Jim was working on all of these. Do you want to just
Yeah.
table
Yeah, we-
them?
Table it.
Yeah.
We can. He was on site with them. I think that the Wild property is relatively new, and that's going to require a site visit, so probably Brian and I can get out there before the next meeting.
And
I
One
think
Association
Brian's-
Road has revised their plans again, or?
Yeah, but I don't know that the game has really changed there.
Okay.
I think we're still looking for an upland buffer. That's not part of the project that's acceptable to natural resources or the trustees at this time. But Jim could speak better to it, as he's been pretty hands-on with that.
Okay, harbor management. Right, Wainscott Pond, do you want to say anything?
I think we're
about-
tabling Perla as well, Lori. Yes.
Do you want anything with harbor management? Rick?
Just, that we are going to be meeting this Wednesday to continue discussions on the Deepwater Wind Farm project. And it looks like we'll have a pretty robust attendance this week. I don't know if we can accommodate any more members of the public from what looks like a pretty big roster of attendees.
What
But
time
it
does
is
it start, Rick?
6 PM.
6, okay.
6 PM at the trustee office on Bluff Road. And there will be a public discussion, more public discussion here at Town Hall in either September or October. So we would invite more of the public to that meeting, where we will be presenting our synopsis, if you will, of the many meetings that will have taken place by then with the Deepwater Management Team, members of the fishing community, and members of the sustainable energy community here in East Hampton. Those are the real focus groups. Members of the public a few have been attending, but it's really to bring the fishing community, Deepwater Wind, and the sustainable energy community together to have discussions.
Good, it's crucial in this kind of thing.
Yeah, it's great to see, that there's a public forum for this project and input from various user groups that are really stakeholders in the process.
Yeah.
That was the purpose and objective. Yep. Jen, you want to approach the podium?
John Aldred, East Hampton. Just wondered if you were, the trustees were going to send a representative to the informational meeting, I guess it is, on Thursday in Montauk with DEC and NYSERDA about the wind farm project.
Is it-
think you
Isn't that
called that.
basically an open house
type
Kind of, yeah, it's like
situation,
12 to 7, but I think it's really designed around people come in and ask questions
Right.
or maybe raise concerns. I'm not sure exactly what the format is, but I was just wondering if, given the trustees' interest in this issue, if they were planning on attending this or sending a
At
representative.
this time, we haven't made that determination, but, we have had quite, extensive discussions with the Deepwater Wind Management team regarding the project, and, I think we have a very good understanding on the scope of the project and the stakeholder involvement process, and we will be a part of that stakeholder involvement process. Scheduling-wise, I'm not sure if we can get someone to that meeting or not, but we'd like to, certainly.
Okay.
Seems like a good opportunity to learn more about the project, and so people who have questions,
Yeah,
can
for
go
folks
there
that
and learn.
haven't had an opportunity
I think
to.
most of us have
meet
done a
with
lot
them.
of research on the project.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure, I'm not sure exactly what this format is, but I was just wondering if perhaps it would be an
My
opportunity to.
understanding of the Thursday meeting was that it was to be located in Montauk so that members of the fishing community in Montauk that have a difficult time attending meetings up the island and elsewhere
Right.
could have a firsthand opportunity to speak with members of the Deepwater Management team and give their input and learn more about the project.
Wasn't this same forum done in Hampton Bays
I think
last
there's
week?
one in
Yeah,
Shanghai.
Shinnecock,
Yeah.
so they're really focusing on the fishing communities.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a community outreach program.
Right. Is it, it seemed to be representatives of NYSERDA and DEC would,
Yeah, that's,
as opposed to
they haven't
the.
been in the mix for us,
Yeah,
so.
a member of NYSERDA may be at the Wednesday evening meeting this week.
Right.
That'd be good to have some.
So, based on where we're at the end of the Wednesday meeting, we may find it's necessary to have a representative there, but we'll probably make that decision after the Wednesday meeting.
Okay.
I'm sure if any of us are available,
Thanks,
we'll
John.
go. I mean, it's a good thing to go to.
Thank you, John.
All right, website, any report on that?
Yes, I have been speaking with John at Hampton's Web Design about getting some of Dr. Goldberg's information as he presented tonight on the website, and we do have a prototype of that that the Records Committee could take a look at. I'll send that around for review, and I will also reach out to Dr. Goldberg, because that was focusing on Georgica Pond, and now we have Wainscott Pond and other areas, so I just want to make sure that, we have kind of an understanding that it's okay to present his information. And I think the trustee site will make it more accessible to members of our community. They know they can go there and get information about our waters. And, maybe in the future, we can get information about the plovers up there and start to have more and more information that is helpful to our community on
Yeah,
the
we have
site. 'Cause
a
we
lot
have
more
good
capabilities
platform.
now, yeah.
It's a nice site that allows that type of updating. So,
Yeah,
I think it'd be a
it's an
good
excellent improvement,
opportunity.
it really
But
is.
we will look for information on Georgica Pond shortly and hopefully Wainscott Pond shortly thereafter. So the site is evolving.
Okay,
Want to meet sometime?
that it?
That's it.
Okay. Crooked Highway,
That'd be great.
do you have anything to report on that?
A little bit. I did talk to Fidelity at Title, and I asked them if they could let me know what it would take for them to do some, to provide me a chain of title on this. Remember, we're talking about a section of Crooked Highway on the north or northeast side of Bull Path. Crooked Highway swings over Bull Path. And it's a very crooked highway, what can I say? And so, anyway, Fidelity, instead of giving me a proposal, they actually sent me the deeds going back to the 1970s. There was a deed in the, I can't remember the name of the people whose name currently appear on the tax map books, but in the 1970s, there's a deed into them. The deed description is very vague. I mean, it's like deeds in those days, it's bounded on one side by a highway, another side by a highway. The highway's not named, can't tell it's Bull Path, Crooked Highway, or some other highway, and other people. So it's really hard to make sense out of it. It doesn't look like this, it's a couple, I forget the names of the individuals, but they don't appear to own any adjacent lots today. So it might be that somehow Suffolk County, in preparing or revising the tax map, because the tax map in that area has been changed a couple times, and I think the most recent change, maybe perhaps when their names appeared, might have been the early 1980s. Fidelity sent me that information too. So it might be as easy as getting Suffolk County real property to take them off the map. There's no clear, in other words, there's not a clear deed into these people for that section of the road. It's not on the tax rolls, so it's not like they would be in default to paying taxes. The property is not on the tax rolls. And if I can confirm they own no adjacent property, then I have to see if I can find out who these people are, if they're even in the area anymore. It may be that they were inadvertently, shown as the owner in some revision of the tax maps, and that has carried forward. So at the moment, there doesn't seem to be any great danger to us. This section of Crooked Highway in question is actually used by a couple of homeowners who tie into it and then come out via this road to Bull Path. So it's actually being used for access to 3 lots in a planning board approved filed subdivision map, or not filed, but an old minor subdivision. And the planning board wouldn't have, I haven't asked the planning board to pull that map, but if the planning board approved the subdivision, they would have, obviously you can tell from where the flag lots go, the flag strips go, that they believed that they were connecting to a public highway. So we have to drill down into it further. At the moment, it looks most likely that there's no active claim against the trustees. This is probably some sort of an error in the tax maps, and there doesn't seem to be any great danger that these people are going to be able to do anything with the property, or that they even know that they still own the property, if the individuals are even still alive. So I'm going to try to get some more information. At the moment, though, I want to get to the bottom of it. It may take us a couple months, but at the moment, we don't have any,
Can you remind me how this came up?
As I said, the best I can determine is the individuals in question got a deed to a parcel of land. The tax maps, however, go back to around 1970.
No, I mean, why did it come, why is it in front of us again at this
In
point?
the 1980s, I noticed this myself at one point.
Oh, okay.
In the 1980s, the tax maps suddenly showed a tax map lot number for the road. See, normally roads, whether they're trustee roads or town roads, do not have an assigned tax map lot number. At some point in the 1980s, the Real Property Tax Service Agency, which is responsible for creating and maintaining the tax maps, assigned this section of the road a lot number, which is odd. And if you look up that tax map lot number, you see names associated with it, owners, purported owners. And I think the individual who brought it to our attention only realized relatively recently that someone other than trustees is being shown on the tax map rolls as the owner. So it's not something that happened recently. In fact, as I said, I've been aware of it for a very long time. This person, the neighbor, obviously noticed it, wondered what's going on, was maybe concerned that someone is claiming that they can build on that lot, that it's not really public property. But it seems less likely that there's something sinister going on, and more likely that it's some sort of an error in how the tax maps were drawn.
Okay.
I have a question. Has anyone been to this section of Crooked Highway recently? Do we know if there's public access, throughout this section of the roadway, or?
I haven't been there for a while. I'm familiar with that area from a few years ago. There's a section of Crooked Highway.
No, I know we were across the street, Rick, a while back with Jim, looking at another section of
Right.
Crooked Highway.
This is
which
on the
was
other
open.
side.
Right.
And if you go directly across Bull Path, I believe there's we'll call it a private driveway. It's not private because it begins on Crooked Highway, but there's a driveway that goes in, a common driveway, and then turns right and goes into becomes a common driveway in this 3-lot minor subdivision. Then there's a section that's unopened, which would just white pine forest, and then the road right-of-way curves, and then you have a paved section. I haven't been on it for a few years, but a paved section that begins on Bull Path further to the north, almost to Swamp Road. I mean, if you come in from Swamp Road, let me put it this way. If you turn off Swamp Road onto Bull Path, now you're heading south or southeast on Swamp Road, the first left turn you'll come to is a section of Crooked Highway. And as I recall, it's paved, not maybe like full town asphalt, but you go in, makes a sharp right turn, like a 90-degree right turn. There's a driveway off of it. You go a little further, and then there's like a left turn that comes to a common driveway that serves about 3 or 4 lots. And if you were to continue straight where that left turn is, you're still on the trustee road right-of-way, but at that point, it's unopened, and it's White Pine Woods. And that leads into the section that we're concerned about, which then turns back towards Bull Path. So there's nothing obstructing public access as far as I know. Part of it is open and is used as a driveway for residential lots. Part of it is unopened and just wooded.
Thank you.
All right. 3 Mile Harbor, Vanderveer, request from the building inspector to issue a CO. Nothing?
Brian was working on these.
Brian said we were waiting for an
Yeah.
update on some paperwork from Mr. Vanderveer,
Okay,
and I don't believe that's coming yet.
okay. And request from the building inspector to issue a CO to 10 3 Mile Harbor Drive. Was anyone go look at that?
I think Brian was gonna look at that too.
Okay.
Yep,
I think he's away this week, right?
yeah.
All right, payment of the bills. Staples, general supplies, $159.73, and a color printer for $316.99. Optimum, $165.53. Anthony Tohill for Seaview, $122.50. Seacoast Enterprises, $1,403.28 for spring maintenance on pump-out boats, I believe. $678.79 plus $865.50 for a total of $1,544.29 for boat repair and $76.50 for fuel. And North Fork Water Supply, $56.44. Do you have a motion to pay the bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and minutes, April 24th?
I know Diane submitted some amendments to the minutes of April 24th, and I did have a chance to look at them earlier today, and I don't really have any issue with those amendments. They're pretty straightforward. So I would make a motion to approve those minutes with the amendments that were submitted.
Okay, do we have a second?
We're making a motion for each one separately, or
Yeah, because I haven't had a chance to look at all of them.
Oh, okay, okay.
So just for the April 24th, yes.
So I'll second.
All in favor?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, due to my schedule right now, I haven't had a chance to look at all of them, so I can't
Okay.
speak to the amendments. Tyler, I don't know if you've had a chance to.
I haven't really seen the May ones yet, just the April one I was fine with, but
So if it's okay if we could table the
I'll
other
take a look at the
two,
May ones.
so, Tyler and I can take a further look at them, please.
And I think there's a third one I haven't looked at yet that you sent out, right? I think you sent out four
Four sets.
sets. And I-
there was one more we just got recently, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Right, yeah, I
Yeah.
think so, you just
So
sent
there
one.
may be
Let's go for
3
it.
again next time around,
Okay.
yeah.
All right,
Try to get on
I'll
them.
make a point to really look at this.
Thank you.
Knock 'em out.
Okay, report of the clerk, the only thing I've got is the clam contest is in progress, so just really
Can we
not much to
get out and
say.
visit some of the local businesses to get some
Yeah.
donations would be
I
helpful.
mean, I can do some of that again. I did it last year, so I'm happy to go to
Yeah, I've
some
got
of
a
those same
few.
places too, and I'm sure if everyone else has businesses they want to ask.
The list that Lori sent out of last year's
Contributor.
sponsors was really, that's helpful. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you, Lori.
Okay. Correspondence. Nature Preserve Committee agenda for 8:10 and the minutes of 7:13. If anybody would like to see them, they're in the office. Notice from Vector Control for aerial mosquito larvicide spraying schedule. Say this is for, well, this is,
Probably the past week, right?
no, this is July 25th and 27th. See, the problem with these is it's the last,
Keep getting
after
the
the
last
last meeting, so
Yeah.
it's really irrelevant at this point. Peconic Estuary Program, we're posting their information on the website, so, or a link, we're doing a link to?
You can,
Is that
we'll
what-
do that.
Oh, I thought we were doing it. Okay.
I saw the events email, so we
They're
can.
doing a climate change talk on Wednesday, the 16th, from 6 to 8 p.m. And they're having an Accabonac Harbor hike on Saturday, the 26th at 9 p.m.
That sounds cool.
Anybody interested in that should contact Nick Bryan at 917-225-4145 to register. A cardboard boat race on August 6th, which passed. And that's it.
May I back up 1 second to the
Sure.
clam contest?
Sure.
Last time I was in the office, Arlene got a phone call from Montauk CCOM,
Mhm.
and they're doing like informational, they sent out postcards, save the pond, save the lake. Anyway, they were asking if they could come to the clam contest and just set up a table with their information in order to provide the public with some, education about the Montauk water bodies. So I throw that out there for everybody, if they,
I like the idea.
I mean, we've had,
They're good, they're
Riverhead
like-
Foundation and
Yeah, sounds
Cornell
good.
Connection
and,
there to Lake
Yeah.
Montauk, there's a good shellfish population.
We're gonna need a
Lake.
bigger boat. It's gonna spread into a regular country fair at some point.
Mhm.
It's okay.
Yep.
We got 4 tents, and we get a couple more.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Has anyone talked
Okay.
to Cornell about doing the touch tank thing again? That was a big hit last year. I can
I
give them a
haven't.
call or something, because I
They-
remember last year, they struggled to get someone to come out at times, so I think if we get a hold of them earlier this year, it'd be
Yeah, it'd be great
beneficial.
to have Cornell and Barley, and we're doing some work together now on some projects. so
Yeah.
I think it's a nice synergy.
Right, they brought the touch tank last time, but Barley was actually there at the tank, I think, educating people about it.
Yeah, let's see if we can get them to come.
Okay, and the last thing, well, does anybody at the table have anything? No? All right, we're gonna have to go into executive session and discuss the Zweig case at this point, so, can I have a motion to go into executive session? Well, do we adjourn this meeting?
No, we're
we
going to
make-
executive
Make a motion
session.
first, then
Yeah.
come out and then adjourn.
Yeah.
Right, so can I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session.
A second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll take a couple-minute break. We can, actually, I think we can go into another room and do this,
Oh, okay.
and he can just come in and break down.
Okay.
So if, Matt, if you'd like, you can come and start breaking down, and we'll close our meeting afterwards.